pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gilman?
Yep.
Chasm, absent and excused. Korn? Here. Lehman?
Here.
Underwood?
Here.
Approval of the agenda with the blue sheet. Is there a motion?
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Conflict of interest, is there a conflict of interest? Well, I can mention this, somebody from the peninsula had concerned that I had a conflict of interest on the Bluff Road issue simply because there's a property listed out there on Bluff Road. Okay. I don't know what that is, but. That moves us on to public comment.
No.
We're going to do. Oh, I changed it. All right. So we're going to do the Bluff Road letter. Who wants to take lead on the Bluff Road letter?
Well,
You have the draft.
I have to draft.
She has some changes she'd like to make.
Staff has been working on a draft of a letter of support for Peninsula Township, specifically on our position on Bluff Road. And it sort of summarizes what, with some changes, it's not finished yet, but we've had some comments made in the last 24 hours that is indicative of where we as the road commission are headed with this. And I feel that it mirrors what the working group discussed, and there was 13 or 50 of us, even though we don't have a formal presentation of working group. I don't know how many people in the audience have been able to see the edition because it came today. Just somebody, no, nobody's, maybe, has anybody seen the letter, the working group letter? Perhaps.
Yeah, and I think I can kind of fill in a little bit there. The outcome of our committee meeting last week was this idea of a letter of support. We haven't had the item on the agenda yet, and so our board has not voted on the certification for roads for Act 51 funding. But in anticipation of that vote, we wanted to have a letter ready that if this board does vote to decertify a small portion of Bluff Road temporarily, we wanted to make sure that it was clear why we had voted that way and why that was done. So the outcome of the committee was a letter that was twofold. It was able to be from our board and explain what we're doing in that process. But also, I've been working with Isaiah Wunsch, who's the supervisor of Peninsula Township, that we could create a letter that we could use to provide to our legislators that represent us in Lansing, because we do think that it seems fairly unrealistic that these funds will come locally to us for this road. And we think it is more possible that it would be via the House and Senate. So this letter would be there that our legislators could use to show our support of this project and why you may see this temporary decertification of this small portion. But in essence, it really was something different. So a letter was drafted by staff that was, to the best of my knowledge, accidentally omitted from our agenda. I wasn't very happy about it. I'm just going to say that. I'm certain it was an error, and unfortunately we weren't able to republish our agenda, and I wanted everybody to see this so that they knew it ahead of time. But unfortunately that didn't happen. I received the letter at 6:36 this morning, so I'm still working on this with you guys too. One of our road commissioners who had a planned absence today, Hyder Chasm, did send some amendments to this letter, just some, he's a lawyer, clarifying some words, making it look a little bit smoother. And they're great. And I love his changes to it. And I have kind of just quickly penned a conclusion paragraph. I felt like the letter needed to kind of sum up. So we have that letter here that our board could vote on later on in action items if the board so chooses to, and if during certification that portion was not included in it. If the board does not vote tonight to decertify that small portion of Bluff Road, then I suppose the letter's a moot point, although it's still nice to show that we are all working together. So I think that's good. So I, for the record, would be willing to read this as is, because nobody was able to see it.
With the correction.
I think that'd be great.
Okay, so I'm gonna read this with just a few of the prettier words that Hydra put in and a quick conclusion that I wrote, and by quick, I mean quick, like in the last 1 minute. So the Board of Road Commissioners of Grand Traverse County, referred to as the board, has and continues to support the restoring and reopening of the closed segment of Bluff Road to public travel. The board recognizes the importance of this route to Peninsula Township residents, the providers of emergency services, and visitors to our area. In support of this effort, members of the Grand Traverse County Road Commission Board and staff, members of the Peninsula Township Board, 2 engineering firms, residents, and other interested parties have and continue to meet to discuss possible solutions and paths forward. The culmination of these discussions is that the multi-million-dollar cost associated with this effort is simply insurmountable without substantial financial support from outside of both Grand Traverse County Road Commission and Peninsula Township. The board will continue to support applications for grants or other sources of funding which will bring this project to completion. The board further commits to providing the necessary administrative support to complete this project when funds become available. The board is aware that there are questions regarding the temporary decertification of this small closed segment of Bluff Road in Peninsula Township at issue. The term decertification does not mean abandonment and should not be considered as such. All Act 51 eligible local agencies, like the Grand Traverse County Road Commission, are required to annually certify to the state of Michigan mileage and classification for their roads and streets as they existed on December 31st of the previous year. In its present condition, the closed segment of Bluff Road is neither open to public travel, nor is it maintainable. It has remained closed to vehicular traffic for approximately 3 years and will remain closed for the foreseeable future until the necessary funds to perform the needed repairs become available. For these reasons, Grand Traverse County Road Commission will not submit this small closed segment to the state of Michigan as certifiable, and it will be decertified. Not only is this action legally required of the Grand Traverse County Road Commission, but it is also a responsible use of valuable taxpayer dollars. A temporary decertification of this short closed segment of Bluff Road means that the Grand Traverse County Road Commission will not receive funds to maintain this small segment of road for public travel. However, the public right-of-way continues to exist when funding for rebuilding the bluff and road become available. And then I just added on, in conclusion, the Board of Road Commissioners of Grand Traverse County pledges to work actively with Peninsula Township to seek a solution to the reopening and recertification of Bluff Road. And then it would be signed by the Grand Traverse County Board of Road Commissioners of Grand Traverse County. So that's what we came up with, and we wanted to make sure that everybody knew about that prior to the discussion on certification of roads, and of course, potentially the eventual discussion of this letter if the outcome of the certification would deem so.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we adopt that letter as it.
We have to do it after the
We have to
certification.
do it after the certification.
We haven't decertified that portion.
Okay.
So we are introducing the letter now, and then we would move on under action items to item R for letter of, oh no, that's. We can't vote on a letter that we haven't done yet. But I could maybe offer something. You could make a motion that in the event that we certify, that we could tie it together with the certification action item.
Okay.
We could do that. I think I heard that motion from Jason.
Yep.
I will support that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to public comment.
Bailey?
Any person may make an advance appointment with the board regarding road commission topics for a regular or special meeting in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. If an appointment is made, the topic will be an agenda item. The following applies to public comments. Please state his or her name and address. Topic must be relevant to the road commission. Individuals are allowed to speak once for up to 3 minutes on a single topic, which may be extended by the chair. A group addressing the board requires a designated spokesperson who may speak up to 10 minutes. The board will not act on any item from the public that is not on the agenda.
So first public comment, just overgive your name and address.
Hello, board. My name is Josh Francis. I live at 5939 Sharman Road. I'm here to address the progress or so far not progress on the Sharman Road Improvement Project. As you remember from last month's meeting, we have been radio silence from the engineering team since the time of us doing a survey late in 2022. We expected that plan to come through from Jim, hoping late December. It's now March. At the last meeting, Brad mentioned confidently that you would reach out and make sure that there was some progress. I have heard of no progress made in that fashion, as well as radio silence from both voicemails and emails left directly with Brad in his office, as well as Mr. Schiffer. I'm hoping that we might get a progress report or some type of update on that plan that's supposed to be coming through that we can put in front of East Bay Township and also Paradise Township. Has there been any change?
I know I've talked to Wayne about this, and I will talk to Wayne when he is returned to the office on Monday. But I talked to him about it right after the last meeting when he got back into the office and instructed him to make sure that it was followed through on. I will deal with that on Monday.
Okay, can you confirm that you received my communications?
I've been out of the office for a meeting for the last week, and before that I had many other things in the county meetings, so I was not 100% sure that I got through everything yet, but I will make sure that I also talk to you next week after I talk to Wayne.
Excellent.
Can you do me a favor?
Yes, sir.
In the future, will you CC me at my county?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Can do that. Jim, or does anyone else have any other questions or information on this topic?
Yeah, yes, just as the formality of public comment, typically we won't be responding to public comment. We don't want to start doing that. That's why it's really important that you let at least one or two of us know what's going on, and then we can follow up and put a little pressure on staff if necessary.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Please, will do.
All right, Josh?
Will do. I appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Any other public comment?
Just to clarify too, real quick, this was East Bay Township and Paradise?
Yes.
Okay, I am the East Bay Township rep. We haven't had our meeting yet, but you're welcome to copy me on something. Just don't copy more than 2 of us.
Don't have more than two.
More than 2.
And I'm Paradise first, so.
Wonderful. I really appreciate that clarity. Ms. Underwood, Ms. Corn, thank you very much.
I Dan. Say your name and address.
My name is Dan Olson. I live at 14795 Mallard Drive. I'm here just to speak on my own behalf. As some of you commissioners were not here 2 summers ago, and as you discussed the plan forward with Bluff Road, I just wanted to share 2 short, very short clips at the end of 3 minutes of recommendations that your consultant gave regarding a way forward. I'd just like to play those right now.
Yeah, no, this is really a 2-part solution. If you're going to go forward with stabilizing the bluff and you want it to be a long-term solution, you would definitely want to address the groundwater and the surface water from upstream that's coming towards the bluff that's causing the instability. So you need to do both. You've got to protect the toe from wave action and toe erosion, and you need to address the drainage. So it might be, lining the upstream ditch with a geosynthetic clay liner, collecting that water in a pipe that's then, horizontally, we can either bore it through the road or however you want to do that. I mean, there are a number of different ways to do that, but we need to outlet that water. It needs to be captured, and we need to keep it from going down into the ground and allowing it to free drain out the face of the bluff.
You also
and part of the working group that I'm a part of, I submitted a document kind of outlining what I think a way forward would be as far as what else to look at. And she did give a little more detail to that plan. And it has to do with the safety rating. So I just want to play that brief clip. It's only a minute long.
Interim, we manage the groundwater as best we can, and move forward with looking at a long-term stabilization along the toe. Again, we're moving in the right direction, and also stabilizing the surface of the bluff by reducing that seepage. And we can look at what that does in the model. Simply, I think if everybody can still see my screen here, what that does is, we artificially lower this groundwater in the model and show that it's kind of stabilized at what we would predict that groundwater conditions be in, and then recalculate what that factor of safety is, and that can help us a lot to determine what the potential to move forward with something like that would be, knowing that then the toe would be protected later on down the line. So those are some things that we can look at rather than, and I think along with that, the other thing you'd look at this point would be, of course, the repair of the areas that are already failed that would need to be restored to restore traffic.
So I just offer those 2 points because we've asked several times for the ditching work to be done, and it was based on the information that GBI had provided as a way to increase the safety rating factor to the road to permit other activities there. It's a relatively cheap step that could be taken with the lining of the ditch and preventing more water from going underneath the road. So as you discussed the plan forward with Bluff Road, I'd simply ask that be given due consideration and that your staff be directed to really explore that and have a greater discussion on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Good evening, road commissioners. My name is TJ Andrews. I'm the Grand Traverse County Commissioner for District 7, which includes Peninsula Township. I am a relative newcomer to understanding Bluff Road, among many other things, but I understand this is an important issue in my district. It's the issue that hands down I've heard the most about in the 2 months since I've taken office. I did send an email last night where I raised some concerns that I don't want to reiterate. And I appreciate that several of you reached back and acknowledged the letters. So I just want to say that from where I sit as a newcomer, I think there might be a disconnect between what I think the commission thinks it's saying and what the community and the affected community is hearing. And somewhere in there is the message is getting lost. I think the road commission has said unofficially that it believes it's been clear in its intent to keep the roadway open for Bluff Road, but it seems the community is just not hearing that message. An example of that would be, for example, when the board supported the ARPA grant application, but that didn't come through in the application to the county for those dollars. There's other examples. But putting that aside, I think there really is consensus here, but what the problem is, which is that Bluff Road is an outstanding community resource and it warrants all reasonable efforts to get a way to reopen it, and also that will be costly. Looking for a solution is going to take work, and I appreciate that the working group seems to be working towards that next step. I appreciate the letter. I think the letter demonstrates a sentiment that I think I appreciate. I am concerned that it wasn't subject to public review. I got a draft of it earlier today, and I appreciate that that's in there, but I would request that you consider turning that into a resolution. We know that in November, the board passed a resolution, but there was no public record of it. It wasn't in the packet for the meeting, it wasn't in the minutes, and it wasn't reported anywhere in any public record. So we act as boards by our motions or resolutions. So turning that into a resolution would be just a suggestion. And my third point is that the letter, as I understood it, says that the road will not be open for public travel. It's not open for public travel. And I think that's the source of some confusion in the community because non-motorized
It says
vehicles.
vehicular.
Does it say that?
It says
The draft I have said, didn't say that, so I think if that can be really clear in the record, I appreciate you repeating that, because I was following along in my draft and that wasn't as clear. But making sure that the community, because that's obviously been a huge source of concern, that it would not be open for non-motorized access. Thank you for your time.
Please support.
Good evening, I'm Skip Bateman. I live at 14826 Mallard Drive. And I am also one of the local resident participants in the new working group for Bluff Road. I just gotta say that for me, this is not a particularly happy evening. We've been at this problem for 3 years now. Nothing has been done to restore the public safety of Bluff Road. Nothing has been done to keep the damage from getting worse. And so we are now at a point where I understand the situation. You are legally obligated to close this road because it's unsafe for through vehicular traffic. So I get what you're doing. You're boxed in the corner, you have no choice. I do worry that you might be setting a precedent through what's happened with Bluff Road that can be extended to other local roads in the future. You know, it's pretty easy to make excuses for not fixing a road. It's too expensive in comparison to the value it provides to the community. And we've got a lot of local roads in this county that are not as bad as Bluff, but they may or may not be subject to that kind of judgment in the future, and I hope this does not become a precedent. Now, looking up where we go from here, I've got to tell you, I think the brightest light possible hope in the future is the new composition of you commissioners. And I hope you'll be able to bring fresh ideas, new energy, kind of a renewed focus and dedication to actually finding the solution to the problem we have at hand. But I fear basically that we're still in the same box that has led us here tonight. As many of you have said, what we need is money to fix the road. And if it's the categorical position of the RC that will not spend any of its funds, which we've heard before, on the repair project, I don't see either your group or Peninsula Township having enough fundraising capacity to really reopen that thing anytime in the near future. At present, we don't even have an agreed upon realistic shovel-ready plan of repairs in hand. And without that, I've got to say, you're pretty much dead in the water if you want to get serious about finding outside sources of fund. So my one takeaway tonight, I hope from this, is I really urge you and the township to get serious about coming up with a plan that you guys can set forth to various funding agencies to get some traction under our fundraising efforts. So in summary, please use your vote tonight as a wake-up call, not just the nail in the Bluff Road coffin. Time to stop kicking the can down the road, even though the road tonight's going to be certified. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from public like to comment? Yes.
Mike Skursky, 14696 Mallard Drive. What I want to talk about is it relates to the situation in Bluff, but I think it's more of it's a larger problem than that. I think it relates to the lack of local input into how money is being spent by the road commission. It's about $20 million this year is coming in on the revenue side. And about $5 million is coming in from the millage that was just passed a couple of years ago. If you look at the spending that you're looking at, you're getting funding also from local roads and primary roads from the state MTF, obviously. But what we're looking at now is on your budget plan is based on $14 million or $12.5 million we spent on primary roads, $3.6 million would be spent on local roads. So you got 4 times as much money being spent on the primaries as the locals. If you look at your winter budget and winter for plowing and maintenance, basically it's a 1-to-1. It's 1.4 and 1.3 million dollars being spent. So you can see the primary roads obviously get more attention, materials, so obviously there's a lot less mileage there. So I didn't have the mileage of primary versus local, but it obviously is a very significant difference. But what I would look at, you also money that comes in from this villages going to Traverse City, going to Kingsville DDA, and down to, and also the DDA of Traverse City. But of this money, basically, the only thing that a township, when there's 15 of them, is getting about $30,000. So this is basically 3%. And the township of, Peninsula Township is putting in about $850,000 a year in as revenue to the road commission. We're getting back basically about 3% of that kind of money. If you change that sharing percentage to instead of about 5% of the money that's coming in, going back to the township, so they can help direct where it's being spent. If you would change that to 30%, that would give the townships more impact into where the money should be spent, because they live there, they know where the money, and where they're being told where the money should be spent. If you change that ratio I'll call it rebating back to the townships, if you'd go to a 30% rebate back to the townships and base it on basically revenue that you receive, Peninsula Township would get about $270,000. That $270,000, if that was received in basically in 2019, when that first impact of Bluff Road collapse was there, that would have been fixed and done, and we wouldn't be here. So I think you really need to look at how your plan for reallocation of funding that's coming from the community goes back to the community, so that the community and your residents and taxpayers start making those decisions and make it easier for you, because they've got as much impact and as much benefit in anything that is being spent than having to come every year and wait for evaluations that come out of the road commission. It's not tearing apart your budget, but it's taking the monies that the community decided to give you and having a bigger say in how that's being spent. I think you got to really look at that very seriously. I know you had a strategic session. You want to look at more community input. There you go.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to make one comment clarification, and that is you mentioned the DDAs. By law, they collect that particular portion of our just.
Right, I understand that.
Legal.
Yes, sir.
All right, Isaiah Wunsch, I'm the Peninsula Township Supervisor. I live at 2494 Carroll Road, Traverse City, Michigan. Thank you all for listening to us this evening. I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but I think you've heard as the commission how important it is to the residents of my township to find a solution for this problem. I felt that the last working group meeting that we had was very productive. I'm hopeful that you all, if you do choose to be certified, will support that letter, and that you will put action behind the letter. I think what we're looking for is for the road commission, the township and the residents understand that we need to put effort into getting the road fixed, into getting this project across the finish line. We understand that the road commission does not have the financial resources to do this project in-house. But if we can be looking at opportunities for the road commission to apply or co-apply with the township for funding opportunities, if the road commission can take an active role, a leadership role in advancing requests to the state legislature and federal transportation authorities looking for funding, we would appreciate leadership. We would appreciate having a team participant. It feels like the right direction in that regard. So I think it's important that that be communicated back to you all. And finally, if you do choose to decertify and approve that letter, the last step that I would ask for is for us to reconvene or to look at what kind of a budget the road commission is realistically willing to look at putting behind that project. Before I moved back to the area, I worked in economic development for about 5 years. And one of the biggest frustrations for me with this project is that we don't have a budget from the road commission. We don't know how much funding we're looking for from the state. Whether we establish that in a public forum or whether it's something that we talk about at a committee level and figure out, that would be very helpful, because if we're looking for grants, if we're looking for a state legislative appropriation, if we're looking at other local funding options, having a clearer understanding of what the road commission's real financial commitment to a fix is would be incredibly useful, because we're starting at basically a zero-based budget right now, which is a bit of a challenge. But again, thanks to Elisa and Ellen and staff for participating. I think we're moving in the right direction here.
My name is, excuse me, my name is Rick Venner, 1660 Wayne Street, Traverse City. I'd actually like to commend the road commission for making the attempt to keep the road open for recreational use in the interim through all this. I'm the vice president of the Cherry Capital Cycling Club. It's a very important stretch of road for recreational use, used on a daily basis all summer, spring and fall. So please keep in mind while we go through this that to try and keep it open, as it's been indicated recently in some emails for that purpose. But thanks for the dialogue.
Is there any other public comment?
What's your comment to that?
Okay. Now to the next item, it's appointments. Bill?
My turn. Bill of Oster. I knew it.
Yeah, you are.
I like that.
For the audience, this is our consultant on the east-west corridor.
As long as you guys get value out of this, I'll bring it. It eventually will change, I would think, as we move forward. And it's, okay.
Running out of room.
Yeah, I did that right. Stand behind it. Now you can't see. No, it's like, okay, so I'm here to give you an update on, hello, everyone. Here to give you an update on the Boardman project as we moved into a little deeper into the environmental assessment. What you're looking at is you're pretty familiar with this, the western segment and the connection to US 31. Oh,
I don't want to interrupt you, but if you turn it, it might show up on the screen for
Yeah,
us.
you want me to do that?
The audience can see it. That's what
how much you want the auditor?
for the audience folks.
Yeah, man, yeah, that's
It's there. We can see it. On the audience can actually see the map.
We got a thumbs up from Larry. IT likes it.
Now, oh, you can see it on the
We can see
screen.
it on the screen, and the public can actually see the.
Okay, so what you're looking at is the west end with the connections to US 31. There's 3 variants that we're looking at. This is some of this is new to you guys. We're diving into a little deeper into it. We're looking at potentially discarding one of the alternatives because of its impact to US 31 and potential impacts to the wetland and the bison farm. So that would be the Silver Plains alternative. That's one of the alternatives we're looking at potentially discarding. The eastern half, what you're looking at is 2 alternatives, one straight through for the bridge and one curvilinear alignment that takes advantage of property that you already own, as well as minimizes impacts to adjacent properties on either side of it. And we've eliminated the yellow portion, which is straight through, because the benefit we get from the curvilinear alignment is great compared to the minimal cost of a curvilinear bridge. The bridge experts say that there's no difference in cost essentially from a straight through. So this is all repeated. What you don't see on here is we're analyzing roundabouts at the intersections at Keystone, Cass, and the connection to US 31. We're in that process of developing. The traffic analysis is underway. We have them drawn in, but we don't have all the traffic analysis to be able to identify turning lanes and it's somewhat of an estimate, I guess, at this point, because there's no road here. So we have to extrapolate. Our models and develop future volumes where they don't exist today. So that's part of our struggle, but we're managing it. And along with those roundabouts, there are some impacts that we're evaluating, gathering all the impacts to all of that. It's moving along pretty well. I'm happy with that. Let me move into other aspects of the project. If there's, I mean, are there any questions on the alignment? This is basically the alignment that was approved in the PAL. The other alternative that we are analyzing, as was suggested, if you recall, the resource agencies suggested we evaluate the South Boulevard alternative because people kept saying, why don't you just improve South Airport Road? So we are looking at that. The impacts to that are tremendous. We're looking at a 4-lane boulevard alternative as well as a 7-lane alternative. The impacts, as you can imagine, in a fully developed corridor is quite drastic. So that is an alternative that we have been asked to look at, and we're doing that. We don't expect it to go very far.
As a connector?
As a alternative to the Hartman-Hammond.
Why are we back to that? I mean,
Because we were asked to do that by the resource agencies.
Oh, okay.
And they're suggested, and they understand, but it kept coming up. One of the biggest issues is it doesn't serve the purpose of need. Purpose and need is to provide a redundancy, and just improving South Airport Road doesn't do that. So
you're also looking at a 2nd-lane road through there.
yeah, and that doesn't even touch all the turning lane needs either.
Okay.
So we don't expect that to go very far. But
So
we
more
have to
make work than to, yeah.
Sorry about that, Jason. Yeah.
No, it's not your fault, but I'm just.
Yeah.
I mean, South Airport Road is a bridge. So that, are we talking about like a 7-lane bridge over the Boardman River Valley?
Most likely the boulevard I don't think we would go back to a 7-lane across the river. We keep that boulevard, and those are not bridges.
They are culverts.
Yeah.
So you would have to replace the culverts with span bridge concepts and then.
And the biggest issue there is that section road is under the 100-year floodplain. We have to bring it above the 100-year floodplain.
Right.
It's a big deal.
Which is very difficult with the adjacent property.
Exactly.
I mean, kiss Logan's Landing goodbye.
The access is difficult.
Yeah.
Very difficult. So we are analyzing that. We've been asked to, not I wouldn't say a cursory level, but certainly not we're not diving in as deep as we're on these, because we see the infeasibility of that. Anyway.
But that's in reference to phase 1 environmental. This is the state's ask simply because of the environmental impact. And then you want to be able to rule out that South Airport expansion is not.
We've been asked to analyze that alternative similar to the way we analyzed the Cass Road and the.
I think if while presenting the information for that, you continue to press that doesn't address our redundancy need.
Exactly.
I mean, I think that's where the solution is to this.
I agree with you. We're not making that conclusion yet, but
well,
getting there. No, I'm trying not to put the cart before the horse. We have to analyze things before we make decisions and recommendations, and we're trying to do it in the proper way. Okay, so those are the alternatives. Alan or the new Lisa?
The Silver Pines, just to point out for everybody so that they know, the one you were talking about probably discarding was the Silver Pines alternative. Which one is that on?
That would be the southernmost one, the dark blue. And
it's on a hill, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's 5% downgrade.
And you couldn't put a roundabout.
We can't put a major intersection on that downgrade, so we have to flatten it, and it's the cut and the fill is tremendous.
And that one also had the greatest impact to wetlands across the.
Yeah, across the Bison Farm, there's a wetland in there, and the other alternative, which we call the midline alternative, comes in at a flat area. and it satisfies the need for.
Still have to cut a hill a little bit, but it's not.
Not on that one. We have to, there's more embankment on the new roadside east of it, but it comes in a flat area, and it's very, very little change. The McCray Hill alternative, which is the northernmost, which is a straight through shot, has similar but not as drastic as the Silver Pines alternative, and it has some access issues at the IRS building and the
Right.
DC building and stuff. There are access issues.
That's what the IRS.
But we're able to manage it. We feel, we're looking at ways to manage that, and it's coming through nicely, I think. Okay, so that's the alternatives. Two other things I want to talk about, and the environmental assessment, the 12 months that we've been talking about has not started yet. The 12-month clock has not started yet. And it won't start until after we prepare a document called the initiation document. There's a step before that where MDOT and the feds have to agree that this is properly classified as an environmental assessment. That document was submitted to MDOT late last week. We received comments right away. They did a fabulous job of giving us comments, and we've addressed those in 3 days, and they're back in MDOT's hands. So once we get their approval that this is properly classified as an environmental assessment, which I don't expect any it's either a categorical exclusion, a environmental assessment, or an environmental impact statement. We know it's not an environmental impact. It doesn't fit the categories for a CE, so it is definitely an environmental assessment. They just have to agree. Once we get that approval, we initiate the 12-month clock. And once that 12-month clock is, we have 12 months to not only finish the environmental assessment and get a FONSI, but we have to find money for the next phase. And that leads me into the discussion of the funding plan, which we started, and we have identified 6 categories of grants, notices of, NOFO's notice of funding.
Funding opportunity.
There you go. Anyway, we are looking in the next few weeks of getting a kickoff meeting for that plan and engaging the board at some level, some all. We have to evaluate that, but that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. Kick it off and bring you guys up to speed with where our brains are at and what we're looking for. But again, we have to have money. The feds won't sign the FONSI, which is a finding of no significant impact, until funding for the next phase is in the bank, basically. And the next phase is design or around right-of-way acquisition. Could go with either one of those. I didn't think I'd talk this much. I feel good. Any questions? How did I do?
Which alternative has more acquisitions that will need to be made? And by more, I mean dollar
Most of
wise.
the-
I don't mean
Same.
square foot, I mean dollar wise. It's the more
When you talk
expensive.
about acquisitions, relocations,
Mhm.
we initially identified 15 through the Pell.
Okay.
And that was along the entire corridor. And at the time, we were looking at this as the 15. Most of those were on the existing portion, and that is unchanged. But we are looking, as we're required to, we're looking at ways to minimize impacts, and we can shift alignment a little bit here and there to try to minimize impacts. We are looking at that. I don't have a dollar figure, and I really don't want to say at this point how many relocations we have. We're still looking.
Too bad.
I assume it'll be better than the 15 we
Yeah.
identified in the Pell. I firmly believe that.
That's better than any of the other options that we threw out a long time ago.
Oh, yeah. Wow. And at least we feel pretty good about it, having cleared the resource agency's objections to this project from years ago. We feel pretty good about that. We're following the process that they said wasn't followed, and we're evaluating impacts and looking at ways to avoid those significant impacts in the river basin. So, all right. Anything else? Well, thanks, Bill. You're welcome. We'll take this down and I'll stick around for a while if there's anything comes up.
Next, we have the consent calendar. Kylie?
The consent calendar is used to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together without discussion. Request by any person present to remove any item from the consent calendar for full discussion as an agenda item are automatically respected. The action noted in parentheses for all items remaining on the consent calendar are approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. The manager recommends the following items be adopted. 1, minutes. 2, payroll. 3, accounts payable. 4, financial reports. And 5, communications.
Is there any item? Commissioner Polk? Anybody from the public have a concern on it?
I would move that we, the consent calendar.
Second.
I will second that.
Second. Roll call.
Hyder, absent and excuse, Corn,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes. At the next item is reports.
Well, just one quick update from my written report. We had a very good CRA meeting this week. I got a chance to talk to some folks from Federal Highway as well as from MDOT and make some contacts for some of these grants and talking through some of the things with them. So Bill and Todd and I will be talking more as we move forward at looking at these grants. But there were also a lot of grants that we may be eligible for other things. So we're going to be following those over the next couple of weeks and getting back with the board to talk about those as we move forward. And we also got some pretty good sessions from everybody's perspective. So it's a very good productive meeting.
How many of us went down?
We had 8 total, or no, 9 total, because Jim came down just for the day and turned around and came back. And yeah, he was the commissioner.
Okay, next item, NPO presentation discussion.
Any motion to file that?
Oh, pardon? That's okay.
No, of course.
So.
So that we can get to them, that's all.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Rob Carson. I am the Community Development Director with Networks Northwest. We serve as lead staff to TTCI, which is the Traverse Transportation Coordinating Initiative, and Brad serves on our policy board. So I'm here this evening to basically cover the onset and morphing of TTCI into a metropolitan planning organization.
I'll try to keep up with you.
I'll go ahead and skip slides. There we go. So here's a little history of TTCI. Back in 1988, there was a task force established. That's, from my understanding, that task force was established to actually discuss an east-west bypass around Traverse City. Moving towards 1990, MDOT proposed morphing that task force into TC Talis. And that was because they thought that there was going to be an eventual establishment of a metropolitan planning organization once this threshold was achieved for the U.S. Census Bureau. Fast forward to 2016, TC Talis was changed to TTCI, the Traverse Transportation Coordinating Initiative. And in 2020, with the decennial census, which took 2 years to get the true results of urbanized area. This past December, we were notified that we did achieve the threshold of population necessary to be considered a metropolitan planning organization. And that threshold is 50,000, population of 50,000. And we are just under 57,000 in the urbanized area. Next slide. So what is a metropolitan planning organization? It is a forum for cooperative transportation decision-making for the metropolitan planning area. Next slide. And what is an MPO specifically? It's a policy-making and planning body that is designated to carry out metropolitan transportation planning processes is basically comprised of representatives from local units of government, transit and transportation agencies, as well as airport authorities, and where present, representatives for deep harbor ports or harbor authorities. And in our case, we will also have inclusion of the Grand Traverse Tribe of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians. It's a forum for cooperative decision-making, involves key stakeholders and significant public input. As I said, we achieved the threshold of 50,000 population, and it basically ensures the 3C process: comprehensive, cooperative, and continuous transportation planning. Next slide, please. So here we have the urbanized area for the Greater Traverse region. Everything in purple is a census block that is incorporated into that urbanized area. Now, the reason you see gaps between those different areas of urbanized are because the census utilizes a methodology which utilizes skips and jumps. And that is very important, particularly for a region such as ourselves, because we have significant natural resources in the form of water and wetlands. And typically, as you shouldn't have development in water and wetlands, without those skips and jumps, it's very difficult to achieve the threshold of an urbanized area. Our population is spread out. We are around our natural resources, and so this helps us achieve that much sooner. Next slide, please. So a metropolitan planning area. The metropolitan planning area differs from the MPO. It is basically the area of local units of government to their boundaries that comprise all of the planning area for the MPO. So the geographic area is basically determined by an agreement between the MPO and the governor signs off on that, and the planning process is then carried out. So it's going to encompass at least 70%, or needs to encompass at least 70% of the urbanized area population, which for us, we achieve that between strictly Traverse City and Garfield Township. Now, having said that, you're going to see on the next slide here, the recommended MPA boundary proposed by MDOT provides all the local units of government that you see there on the map. Those local units of government are eligible and invited to be a participant in the MPO process if they so choose. Nothing dictates that they have to. The process involves approval of a resolution of support from their governing bodies to have an individual seated on the MPO board. Those individuals then comprise the policy board and the decision-making body for the MPO. Those units of government that are shown in the MPA boundary there do not have to join if they desire not to, but it is recommended that they do. Next slide, please. So in the state of Michigan, we will be the 14th MPO. There are currently 13. What this map displays right here is the location of the MPOs in southern Michigan. You can see the transparent colors that go out to the jurisdictional boundaries, primarily counties, but in some cases just townships. Those are the metropolitan planning area boundaries. And then underneath, you will see the actual urbanized designated boundaries, and you'll see similar skips and jumps with their boundaries, how they're a little bit erratic. Next slide.
There's none in the North and Midland counties.
There's MATS, the Midland Area Transportation.
That's it.
That's it. Yep. Yep. We will be the furthest north. Outside, the next closest is Midland, and then Mesquite, south of West Shoreline. So a typical MPO structure, we mimic this structure currently with TTCI. We have a policy board, which is comprised of members from the local units of government, as well as the transportation agencies. There is an executive committee of that board. Under that board is a technical committee, which is primarily comprised of engineering staff from transit and transportation agencies, as well as planning staff from local units of government. There is a opportunity for a citizen advisory committee. We do not have that established yet. That is the one piece that will be added when we morph into an MPO. This summer, there's going to be significant public input held so that we can ascertain the desires of the public and place those into the transportation plans, which are required to be developed as the MPO is established. This is all served by an MPO professional staff. which will be members of Networks Northwest Community Development Department, myself, as well as transportation planners. Next slide, please. So the policy committee or board is consists of local elected officials, as I had said, officials from public agencies, and they administer or operate significant modes of transportation within our area, as well as state officials. We have MDOT staff that attend. Policy committee determines their own representation and decision-making procedures. Those are put together and established within bylaws and the incorporation documents for the actual MPO. An executive committee handles agenda items, recommends them to be placed on the agenda for the board and all routine matters. A planning and technical committee serves as an advisory committee to the actual MPO policy board, and they advise on various transportation issues. They oversee MPO technical work, develop recommendations on projects, programs for board consideration. They'll be integral in establishing and developing our planning documents. And it's usually comprised as a set of staff level officials, local, state, and federal agencies. And we also may have standing subcommittees as desired to be formed by the MPO policy board. Next slide, please. So the primary functions are basically to establish a setting of fair and impartial decision-making, evaluate various transportation alternatives to be incorporated into the plans I'm going to talk about here shortly. They cooperatively develop and update and approve the long-range transportation plan, the transportation improvement program, the TIP, which is basically a short-range four-year plan, and then the unified work plan, which is developed on a one-year basis. They involve public, residents, and key stakeholder groups, and that is required to be incorporated in the public involvement plan. Next slide, please. The long-range transportation plan, this looks out 20 years. This will be developed to encompass all projects that are envisioned to occur within our region and the MPA boundary going out 20 years. It sets the future goals, strategies, and seeks to prioritize those strategies for implementation of projects and priorities. And it's updated every 5 years. It requires public participation. Next slide, please. The Transportation Improvement Program is a four-year plan. This is a plan that basically takes the strategies and the priorities from the 20-year plan that were prioritized, places them into the TIP, and this document looks towards development of cost estimates and project parameters so we can get a better understanding of what the costs involved are with the transportation improvements. Next slide, please. The Unified Planning Work Program is developed on an annual basis. This sets and finalizes actual costs related to the individual transportation projects, which are to be undertaken by the MPO on a yearly basis. And funding implications. So currently Traverse City receives $385,000 in STP, small urban program funds. Those will be replaced, and we really received $23,000 in SPR funds. Those will also be replaced. After the MPO designation, the urbanized area would receive an estimated amount of $1 million in STP and small MPO funds, $228,000 in a coordinated planning grant, and that is basically to handle administration, financial administration, as well as staffing, and $120,000 in carbon reduction funds. The funding for the Rural Task Force will not change. So those areas outside of the MPO will still be funded at the same rates that they are currently through the RTF. So here's our MPO timeline. We've been waiting for that urbanized area designation from the Census Bureau. They've been kicking it down the road about every 3 to 6 months. They've delayed it since, I want to say, fall of, or actually early spring of 2021. Finally received that designation. And so we had actually a much longer timeline to become established. And now that it's shrunk to about, from what we were looking at 12 to 16 months, and now we are looking at about 6 months. We're trying to get the agreements before the governor's desk prior to October 1st, so that it puts us on the fiscal year for October 1st. So right now we are going around and we are having what we're calling a roadshow, where we are presenting to the eligible local units of government, as well as the transportation agencies and transit agencies, to present the information, answer what questions we have. The questions that I'm unable to answer, I'll take with me, and then I'll return and provide you information. Next slide.
Could this kill?
So the designation checklist, this is what we're moving through at this point in time. The establishment of the MPO name, the TTCI committee just moved to go ahead and accept the Traverse Transportation Coordinating Initiative. It is basically branded already for the greater Traverse area. And we thought that it would be more difficult to just change the name and get that recognition out there. So they are going to adopt this name. The MPA boundary is what needs to be determined through the discussions with the local units of government, those that are eligible and recommended to join. That's what we're handling with our presentation. We have established bylaws right now that TTCI currently operates under. Those bylaws are being reviewed by individual policy board members as well as Networks Northwest staff for recommended revisions to them for eventual adoption once the MPO is established. The organizational structure of the MPO, as I displayed on the slide earlier, remains very similar to what TTCI currently has in place. And the staffing will continue from Networks Northwest. We are seeking our policy board membership, as I said, from the local units of government. We'll be moving through development of intergovernmental agreements. The first piece is those resolutions of support, which we're currently working on now. And then the location of the MPO will be formally approved. It's likely to remain at 600 East Front Street, Traverse City, Networks Northwest offices. Next slide, please. So the roles and responsibilities for MDOT, they've really been a great liaison between us and the Federal Transportation Administration. They've really provided sound guidance and are continually responsive to any questions that we have when we reach out to them. They will aid MPO and Beta in the transportation planning processes. Beta is following a very similar parallel process. They will have a seat on the MPO board, but they are moving from a rural transit agency to a small urban transit agency. And that is a separate process from the MPO, but it works in conjunction while this process is being undertaken. And then they will be seated with the MPO on the policy board as well. They act as our primary contact point for staff with both the MPO and Beta. They'll be our liaison, as I said, to the federal government. They participate in our technical and our policy committee meetings, advising as necessary. And they review and transmit all federally required documents to the Federal Highway Administration, the Federal Transit Administration. Next slide, please. That is our location of our website right there. And information can be found. We're currently updating the website to the latest and greatest information that we have from our most recent board meetings. That will be available for anybody to view. We welcome you to come and join any of our board meetings. They are open to the public. And happy to try to answer any questions for you.
I think there was.
Brad, do you have any additional comments before we open up to the?
Go ahead, I'll fill in as if there's anything that you need from me.
I've got nothing.
So TTCI is the proposed agency that would manage the MPO.
That would be the name of the MPO.
Okay. And the group at Networks Northwest, where Rob is from, would represent us as staff.
They would be the technical support or the administrative support staff for the board of the MPO. So they would do the administrative.
We can do it.
Yeah, it can be, we can, as the whole board gets formed, the board can then determine what the path is in the future. But right now it would be set up, and they've been doing all the work to get us through to this point. So they have been our administrative staff since TCP.
Is there a competing group, local group with Networks Northwest that wants to manage this process?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I served on TC Talus, so I know a little bit about that. Just one quick thing. I serve as the liaison to the airport authority. And I was at their board meeting on Monday, giving an update on the road commission and mentioned the MPO status and had asked Kevin, the director there of the airport, just input on the MPO status. And he said that he hasn't been contacted yet. that
He
the
hasn't
air,
returned an email yet.
yeah, that the airport authority, I think, is interested. So I
Yeah,
said
no,
that I
it's
would
certainly-
pass on,
yeah.
that they were interested in talking to you. So he didn't have any update for the board at that time because there hadn't been that connection, but that was all that I had. I just told him that I would pass that on and that they're looking forward to, the board members are looking forward to hearing a little bit more about it and how it fits in with the Federal Aviation Administration plans.
Brad, do we have a copy of the bylaws now? Can you get that to?
I'll get it from.
And they're on that website.
Distribute.
One question with.
They are on the website. Yep.
One question, no follow-up afterwards. I just, is Networks Northwest is classified as an NGO, correct?
We're classified as a regional planning agency.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would be not correct to call it an NGO or?
We're a special unit of government is what we are established under in the Regional Planning Act of 1946. So we're a regional planning association.
Anybody else?
Thank you. I'm sure we'll have more questions as we go.
Oh, yeah, I know, certainly. Expect it.
Okay, Brad. Quickly on the strategic plan that we've started.
I'll turn it right over to John. He's, you guys have all received it, right? in the board pack for that, right? And have a chance to review it.
Very nice.
Yeah, good evening, John Slate. I presented a draft strategic plan for you. So as you recall, back on the 24th of February, we gathered and had some discussions. There was board was present staff and some township representatives as well. And we went through a process, did some voting on priorities and so forth. So taking all that information, it basically is putting in the form of a draft strategic plan. So it provides some initial background information and then basically identifies using the Road Commission's mission statement, develop the draft vision statement, and then there's a series of goals and objectives. And so that's the primary part of kind of the heart of the strategic plan, and that's the area whereby you identified some key goals and then some action items or some strategic objectives under there to work towards accomplishing those goals. Just for your reference, I did include in the back end of that some of the voting that went in terms of the priorities. So I did kind of break it out between Road Commission staff and the board, as well as some of the public attendees. So that's just for reference. But from there, when we drafted some of the comments in terms of putting together the goals and objectives, is really just kind of laying out what you want to accomplish here in the next several years to come. So I'm here just to kind of hear your feedback on thoughts on this in terms of however you want to make any changes or adjustments. I know I talked with Brad before this meeting and said there are probably some of these goals that you want to put a little bit higher than other ones. So I think that's really important to identify those. I also have some suggestions in terms of how to actually implement this and share those with you as well.
Joe, would it go ahead and say one thing? Okay, so after we got the draft, we got together as staff and everybody that was participating in it sat down and we went through these. And while they're all very important goals, it's very tough for us to strive to reach all of them. And so there were some things that kind of rose to the top that we feel as staff need to be addressed. And Larry, if you can start down through that, get down to the actual goals.
Let's see if Bluff Road is on there.
So we had some things that came up for us.
A bit farther down, go further.
Yeah. There you go. And so as we were going through, obviously communication is one that I think we as a board, you as a board, as well as staff have recognized as something that needs to be a centerpiece for what we need to accomplish so that we are communicating more completely between us and all of the stakeholders that involve us. The employee of choice was kind of like a secondary thing for us. We are working on that continuously, but it's not something we are going to be pushing as a fundamental goal right now. Keep going down, Larry. We would like to,
Sorry about
the
that.
advanced planning, we felt was very important as a staff because we feel like, especially as we're coming in through this MPO and we have to start developing these 4 and 5 year plans for the MPO, we also feel that we need to have these same long range plans in place for the non-MPO work that we do so that we can present to the board a 5 year plan of where we're going to be with roads. So we felt that was very important for us.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
That's outside of this MPO. Do we have the capability on our server farm to handle what's needed for the MPO? We're to house it here.
There may be some stuff we have to do.
Okay. Thank you.
So down to the next one.
Oh, oops, sorry about that.
So the engineers felt that maintaining and expanding the capacity for the road and the bridge network was a big thing for them. But we were saying, you know, that's kind of in our normal operations. And it's what we are going to continue doing. The fleet and facilities is something we've been doing. The institutional knowledge was the other one, though, that we feel is a problem that needs to be addressed for us to be able to continue to improve. Because as we're losing people, we just don't keep enough of what they've known. And so by tying that into our technology, we feel that we can start getting better long-range plans. We can get long-range ideas, and then as we keep collecting information, it's going to be stored through that technology to really help maintain policies and why they changed and maintain why we selected roads. So those were the big 3 or 4 for us as staff. And so we would like just to let you know as the board, as you're going to now go through this, you know, where we as a staff felt we needed internally at least to address things.
For a deeper dive, would this be more appropriate for us to set up an additional meeting and just deal with strategic
We
plan?
can definitely do this.
I think so.
So can we set up a time where we could get together and Hyder can be back? And we'll just deep dive into this.
Maybe next month, an hour early.
I can.
Sure. Absolutely. How much time do you think it would need?
Really think, I mean, you're working off of a draft, so you're really about, you know, reworking it in a way that's going to be comfortable for you to implement this. So I don't think it would take that long.
2-3 hours.
Yeah, I wouldn't say more than 2 hours. I think that's plenty.
And you can present implementation ideas as well at that time, or would that?
Yeah, I can provide those in advance of
So, but has everybody at least had a chance to read through it now?
Yeah.
So
I read the plan.
was everybody comfortable, or was there anything that you felt was missing from what was discussed? Because between John and staff and I, we put together a couple of things that we know, little bolts that were missed that we felt should be there. But if there's anything that the board wanted to make sure we got in before we have this meeting, to really do the deep dive into it, I would like to get that with John so we can put together.
Maybe if we, you know, I'm gonna have to go back through it again.
Just send them to Brad.
Yeah, I think if there's something we can send it along. I do want to comment on the process. I wasn't at first, I wasn't sure about the process. Again, I've gone through it with you on the, you know, at the county commission before, for example. I did appreciate the fact that you separated the township's priorities from our own when we were doing the scoring. And I think it was good that we had the input from the staff as well. But I think that could have been, you know, we decide the policy. The staff gives us their best recommendations, and then of course you guys sat down and you did the thing afterwards, which gave a lot of this. Sometimes the policies in a different differ from what staff would love, like to have too, so. So on the scoring of it all, maybe if it could have been broke off even one more, the next time we do something like this, if we do something like this again.
So we need 2 to 3 hours. If Kylie can kind of figure out.
And a Friday works best.
Because of John.
Flexible, yeah, because he's off, but also
I don't work on
Lisa's
Fridays.
off on Fridays also.
Is it evening better for you or?
You want to hang out with us on a Friday night?
Oh, man.
Or a Saturday.
Oh, that's great. You guys are dynamic.
Or Saturday morning?
I'll.
Where
work
does
with
the
the rest
Saturday
of
morning work? I mean, does that work better?
Saturday morning sounds great.
I'm fairly
Better?
flexible. I mean, not
What
like.
about
7 in the
John?
morning.
Yeah, that works for
Not-
me. I can do it Saturday morning.
Yeah,
So it looks like a Saturday.
not 7.
And Hyder agrees because it's not here.
Ethiopia, you gotta show up sometimes.
Should we bring our proposed changes or notes and
I would-
things then to that?
Yes,
committee?
but I forwarded them to Brad, so Brad can forward them on to.
Unlike
so
a
he has
real,
it before we show
okay.
up.
unlike just a 30,000 foot view on this, sometimes it's hard because the word is Grand Traverse County Road Commission to delineate, to Jason's point, between the board, the road commission board, and the road commission. So this is a strategic plan for the road commissioners, right? The commissioners that set policy. Or is this a plan for how not just us setting policy for our one employee, but our one employee runs the rest of the staff? I mean, I just want to be really clear on the scope of this.
I would say yes, we're looking for the direction on policy from you, but focusing on these so that we have an idea of what we're talking about. When you tell me, these are the core ideas of what you want in built in, so that we as staff know how to address these. Because your recommendations for policies for us could be filled any number of ways by staff that's either here or consulting or whatever it may be. So I think, like I said, I just pointed out things that we feel we need to address no matter what. Simply because to keep moving forward and to be able to continue to follow the policies that you have for us, we need to have a core set of guidelines of how we're working towards things. So you're setting a policy based on these, and we're setting objectives to meet those goals that you have for us.
In that regard,
Yeah.
I thought we were going to I think the results are weighted a little bit too much to the people who are most familiar with the road commission, because the staff had a lot of input, and a lot of weight. I thought when we were going to undertake this process, we would have, John, I really liked it. I hadn't been through it before. And I thought we were going to have more community involvement in giving us the representation of what our community expects of us. And I think that was, I know we invited the townships, but maybe the invitations, people didn't realize that we're going to adopt these policies. And this is how we're going to work. You're not going to knee jerk this group around right and left all the time. We're going to establish these policies, and the staff is going to have objectives, and they're going to be judged on that. And I don't know that we got enough as a commissioner. I don't feel I got quite enough feedback from other members of the community who should have a say in our overall direction.
They're always posted because we're all together, and we'll do it again, and we'll basically come up with final draft. If you'd like, we can look at the final draft. More than happy to do that.
Sure, I'm just saying, I thought I would have liked a little broader perspective.
Well, we invited every township.
I know,
And-
I'm not.
We made it very clear what we wanted.
I mean, I invited everybody I was in contact with. I mean, so we'll move through the next one, and then if you'd like, we can.
No, I'm
more than willing to.
It was a real, it was
Do a public
a
forum one night, and say this is what we've
it
come
was
up
an
with,
interesting
get
process,
feedback.
and I think it really will help direct us so that we're steady.
I can just mention that. I think one of the things a strategic plan is a very fluid document. Because you're gonna want to evaluate it on a regular basis, at least on an annual basis. So if anything, I think maybe people were not familiar with that you were undertaking this because you didn't have a strategic plan in place before. And this is the effort of the Road Commission to really advance itself. So there will be a lot of time to work it through, using this strategic plan and adjusting it as you go forward. So as you're having conversations and as you are working towards your goals, there'll be plenty of times to adjust that and recognizing as you're having conversations with township representatives and so forth. So
Thank you.
consider it a really good first start.
Yeah.
So
Would you recommend to us that we should undertake this revision, this update at least once a year then? That we should?
yeah, I think it's recommended just to see where you're at, if you're making any progress or where you have to make some adjustments. So
We'll probably have to make adjustments.
Call and ask. Cover that in part of your implementation recommendations too.
Yeah.
My knowledge never has.
Just like there was nothing in the archives that you dusted off for this.
We went through way back machines and never had anything like this,
So this is the first time we've done it.
Yes,
It's
and
also-
it's already, I feel, even without the final approval from the board, it's really given us a lot to think about as far as all the ideas that came out. Just having that many people in the room to talk and get some feedback from all of the commissioners, as well as a few of the township. It's been very helpful already for us to start looking at, okay, how do we start dealing with certain issues? Because there's clearly some communication issues that need to be addressed. We knew that, but there were some interesting side notes that came out of it too, from us being able to go through that. So it's definitely going to be helpful for us when it's all said and done. And they do get smoother. I mean, we did it, when I was in Ann Arbor, we did it every year.
I think based on the turnout last time, I think we can do it here. You think it'll be bigger? You want to go to the third vendor?
It's gonna be primarily, you're talking about
Yeah.
for this meeting? No, that's just us.
Yeah, we'll do it here and we can adapt from there.
For the
the next
2 hour
year.
session, yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
We can just prioritize goals, I assume. I mean, one of the things I did at County Parks, being the chair of that board for so long, we had a strategic planning committee and we would meet and analyze the items that would come to our staff to come before the board. And we would see how those items related to our strategic plan. And then our committee would recommend how they went forward. Sometimes they never made it to the board. They weren't things that met our goals or weren't, something that the staff needed to spend time on. And that was just one idea of a model, but that's something that we did at the Parks Department that worked really well. And I like that idea. I just want to be really, really careful that we are always as a board focusing on policy and never focusing on what the staff does every day. I just think that's really important. And I don't think that it's, the idea is we're ultimately looking at communication getting better and we're looking at these different policies for that. It's not, me calling Larry going, hey, Larry, did you return an email that, so-and-so, that's right. That's not what a board does. And we come up with policies that openly help us communicate better. So I think that I just want to be really careful. Implementation, I think probably, I hope that the implementation recommendations are at a board level, at a policy creation level, rather than a day-to-day level. But there are really important day-to-day implementation ideas too, which would be more for our staff. I mean, I just want to be really careful that we're clear on what our role is as commissioners versus what our role, what the staff's role is in getting that done every day. So that kind of was my thought on this. I wanted to be clear. And then on the ranking, I kind of, to go with what Alan said, obviously were there 4 or 5 of us? Did all 5 of us go?
Yes.
Yeah, so there were 5 of us in a room full of people, but we are ultimately the people voting on the strategic plan and the goals. So I liked what you said. I liked hearing everybody's ideas and I thought that was great. And I think we can build on that. But I think sitting down as a commission and deciding our realistic goals on implementation for this, because some of these goals are things that would be more implemented by staff rather than the board. That's why I wanted just to be clear on whose strategic plan this is, but I'm hearing it's for the entity as a whole. Okay, so that's important. And I just want to point out, you know, when being an employer of choice by attracting and retaining quality employees is 100% hand in hand with valuing institutional knowledge. Because if your employees hate working there and they leave, they take their institutional knowledge with them. So there could even be a potential that those could maybe be smoothed out or combined, kind of realizing that the way you treat your employees and what you offer them and the kind of values you have and respect for each other in a workplace flush out absolutely into how your institutional knowledge builds and stays at a place. Now, obvious with the, you know, the obvious exception of retirements, right? I mean, every year somebody is retiring or every other year, and I understand that. So I like the idea of how we want to value or develop the succession plans and document institutional knowledge. So that kind of is its own thing. But beyond that, I think we want to be really, I think that that's a really important goal of being an employer of choice. That speaks volumes across the board of how your entity is valued by the public and what they think of it and how you're respected, and also the people that work for you. And so that, I think that that's an important goal that I'd like to see potentially could be combined, but John, you're the expert on that.
Well, this is, I'm just a facilitator. so
And one
sure.
small typo, page 5, Grant Township is listed as Grand Township. That's it, but I represent them, so I'm gonna know this.
They're Grant Township. So the next step is Kylie's gonna kind of get a census on we can meet, put the notice out, and go from there.
Sounds good.
Right, thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. So now we have the Bluff Road update is our next item. Bluff Road update. We talked about the letter. Is there an additional update we want to talk about Bluff Road?
If that was supposed to, if anything, it was a committee update, just to update the board as to where the committee left off.
Bill, I just had one thing to comment, and Commissioner Andrews has left already. She had sent copies of the grant that she received from you, I guess, or from the state, from Eagle. And I remember, you know, it took me a back and forth to recall the resolution that we made. And I looked at the resolution, and the resolution looks exactly how I recall it. I do recall you saying that, well, we may have to move the road.
Yes.
I do not recall you saying we'd have to relocate the road.
It's considered the same thing.
Well,
whether you consider it that, it could be relocating it in 20 feet.
And that was my understanding
Yes.
of what it was. And I think that's led to a lot of confusion, because honestly, the vote that we took earlier in the year where we said, there's no way we're going to relocate the road up Miller Drive.
Right, which is why we were not able to apply for several of the grants that exist, because the only way several of those grants would be applicable is if we move far enough from the bluff that we would have to be somewhere following Mallard Drive. We looked at these grants and they are very specific about sustainability, which means that you're moving out of any potential long-range hazard. And they're pretty specific as to what they're talking about. And that would be a physical change of path.
Yeah,
Overall.
I'd call that rerouting. not
That's-
relocating.
Yes. Yeah, because what we were talking about was relocating within the general
That's
scope.
what, yeah.
So
20 feet over,
relocating
30 feet
inbound,
over, yeah.
or potentially even having to attain additional right of way to move it further off of the bluff. It's different than like you say, like a repathing.
Yeah, because I think, you know, we've shown the engineering works before. We could build walls if we had to, if we moved it in and got it away from the bluff, if we improved the drainage. Prior to doing that, of course, actually engineered a real drainage solution prior to doing that. I think it's possible to keep it essentially in the same location, but move it over. And that was my understanding when I voted for that particular resolution. And that's why Commissioner Andrews' email kind of caught me off guard, because, you know, sometimes when you remember something, you remember what your mental state is, and you kind of remember what the general feeling is. And nowhere in the last year did I ever have an opinion where I would have supported a rerouting or relocation up Mallard Drive, which is in the drawings that are in the grant package.
Well, that was one option that we looked at and we did look at, if you recall, and we said, no, this is not feasible, we're not going to do it. But we also talked about the fact that, you know, because of the nature of what we are eligible to do and what we can do, several of the grants that are out there simply will not be considered because they are not moving it out from eventual potential harm.
Right. Okay.
So, but yes, so their definition of relocating is moving the road, even if it's 20 feet, that's a relocation.
All right.
Of the actual road.
But a 20-foot relocation doesn't satisfy the idea that you're removing it completely from the.
And that's why the one grant that we were finally able to say from talking to the people that issued the grants, the NOFOs and everything, they said, yes, these are designed to be outside of the scope, but this is a high water specific grant. And that is why it was able to say, okay, you move it in and address the situations. And that's the only one we've been able to find. So that's why we had said, you know, we've looked into several other grants. And we just, everything is talking about rerouting, I guess is a probably better term, moving it out through a different path completely and painting new right of way, moving it away from the bluff into a new right of way to traverse to where you need to get to. So
this grant application brings up something that in the committee that was brought up that I just kind of wanted to highlight, that we had said that we would highlight. And it was two components. I believe Jay was the one, I don't believe Jim was the one that said this, but we were talking about a little bit of the spending that the road commission has done in the last year on Peninsula Township. And just our residents of Peninsula Township and the trustee and supervisor weren't even really aware of that, which falls back to a communication problem with the road commission, which we've already acknowledged and owned. So we don't need to beat that dead horse. But what we do need to do now is start to communicate. So hearing about that, I believe it was Mr. Raphael that had said that, you know, he liked hearing that. He wanted to hear that we had done $250,000 worth of, please help me out, Jim, the engineer.
Maintenance and.
But there was specific things along the coast, I believe, that we had done, the shoreline that we had done.
In the last year, I'm not aware of any in the last year.
But we had spent.
But we've spent over $250,000 on Peninsula, on East Shore / Bluff as it comes around. And then also on additional sloughing that happened inland where we had to fix it because it was going to collapse out into the road, or the road was going to collapse down to the valley. So
we
above and beyond that, the state of
We
Michigan-
also spent in last fall, $100,000 or so stabilizing that section. Where's, is Dan still here?
The upper section.
That's within that closure, that money, you inspected that many times.
The work that you guys did is outside the closure. It's north, it's north on the existing open portion of Bluff.
But we're not forgetting Peninsula Township as far as.
But I think more my point is the spirit of the idea. Rather than fighting each other.
Yeah.
I felt that our attendees in the committee enjoyed hearing that and wanted to know that. And, you know, I'm on the road commission and I can't tell you the road commission projects that have been by my house, because sometimes they're just things that they do for regular maintenance and are working on it, and we aren't cognizant of it. So one thing in communications is we need to do better in communicating what we already have done and what we're doing. We've done not a good job at that, and we're going to do better at that. So yes, things have happened on Peninsula that I don't think the homeowners and business owners out there are aware of. So that was the first thing that we learned in that committee is doing a better job and making a pledge to do a better job to share with what we've done. The second thing is this grant application that I'm just seeing for the first time here. When was this applied for? This, it says 2023. When did you apply for this?
This was right after Yeah, it was right after we found out about it, that call, and I don't remember if that was like
November.
November,
November.
so.
So-
we had to scramble.
Right,
Scrambled
for
to get it
sure.
done.
So we have an Eagle, just so people don't know, a state high water infrastructure grant program grant application specifically applied for Bluff Road. I didn't know that it happened, and this is not against you guys. Full disclosure, I have only been on the board since January, so I was not there when this happened. But I am enjoying looking at it and learning that the County Road Commission had moved forward on this application. But to Isaiah's point, I want to clarify that the grant amount that was asked for here is $4,362,944. So I would like to know where that dollar amount came from. So we maybe don't have to reinvent the wheel on this budget for future grant apps. So I like that.
It was in the rest of the grant paperwork.
Right, so we kind of might have this number that Isaiah was referencing that we could share and work together on for grant
Actually, there
apps,
were
right?
two numbers. There was one for the repair of the road and
And then
stabilization of Bluff
Right.
Road as
Right.
it is.
Stabilization, drainage.
Yep.
And
That's
reconstruction
about
of the
2.9
road.
million.
Right, no, I did know about that. So we have some numbers and I'm saying maybe we can all share them. This is a good thing. We don't have to start from scratch. They're starting from scratch. We may have something that we can share and be helpful. And then when you talk about the $1 million match amount, just since I'm learning too, what is typically the source of funding for matches to grant applications for the road commission?
It would be something that we would split with the township.
Okay, so we have,
that. And we would have some discussion that would have to happen as far as how that funds would come together. But you know, these are 80-20 grants. So whatever the total cost is, 20% of it has to come from locals.
and that's that typical match amount that we're talking about, and that has to come from local funds. Is it possible to use state funds allocated by the legislature for specific projects as grant application matches or no?
If we were to get a special allocation outside of the Act 51 for it, they could give us the entire thing without even applying for a grant.
Right, but
So, but we could also
potentially ask
use
for
the
it.
grant and then just ask for the grant money from them if we get the grant.
Because 20% is a lot more palatable than 100%, right?
Right.
So if we could potentially seek legislative assistance in a 20% match to the grant app, then we really have a project that we could move forward on fairly quickly here. I mean, that's a much more less sizable ask than I was thinking. We're going down to Lansing with our handout for 4 to 4.5 million.
Well, that's.
But potentially, which we would do, don't get me wrong. we
Well,
would
that
do
is, that is
but-
actually what we need though.
Right, but you look at the project total of 5,453,680. But my understanding is that's because this grant application is for the high water infrastructure grant program is for larger than the project itself, the closure itself, the 1,200 square foot closure. We're looking at doing something that repairs and corrects the bluff for future high water events, right? So this isn't really just the dollar amount of what we need for this project, but clearly we're getting our numbers from somewhere, so we have something we can start and share with everybody,
And
right?
that was originally developed by the Gordy Fraser engineer for the township and our GEI engineer. Between the two of them, they came up with the original estimate, which was that 3 and change
Right.
or 3.5 for the closure portion, to get that to the point where it would need to be for a 50-year build.
So that, I mean, it's really a twofold issue then, the specific closure and then looking at the overall scope of the project to prevent future high water issues. Because clearly it's a road on a bluff. I mean, it's called Bluff Road for a reason.
Right.
Right? So we don't want to dismiss that, but I also understand the residents' issue with saying it's really not this whole thing, it's a small part. Can't we do something to get it reopened? So I understand that, you know, I hear both sides of that. But I like the idea of the high water infrastructure grant program so that 2 years from now, after Bluff Road is reopened and fixed, we aren't sitting here again with a road that slid into the bay, right? I mean, anybody that's lived on Old Mission long enough knows it goes in cycles.
Yep.
The water
Yep.
does. I mean, you know, every farmer out there knows that.
And
So,
something that you might not know about is Senator Peters was here last fall.
Yeah.
To announce a program a grant, a loan program, which my understanding is the road commission can't apply, but the townships can, and I think the county can.
We are prevented
But
from
we
applying.
still don't, they don't have any rules. So money's just sitting there with no rules.
You are meaning to tell me that somebody in Washington, has I got the rules together for grants.
So, yeah, and they're already through allocation year one without ever even having rules in place.
So when the rules come out, you know, I've mentioned it to the county,
Mhm.
you know, that this is something we might be able to do, but it's my understanding the road commission can't do it.
Is the road
Has to be
commission
somebody
able
else.
to provide matching funds for?
Well, without the rules, we don't know.
Right, I mean, I'm just saying, it's a federal grant, so I know that that's iffy. So the last thing I would say about this grant application and the work that we've done on the peninsula, I want to be clear, mimics exactly what we wrote in our letter. We pledged to work actively with Peninsula Township to seek a solution to the reopening and recertification of Bluff Road. This is it. And then the last thing I want to add that I am certain nobody in the audience knows because they weren't there is we are working diligently to improve our communications. We talked about it at our strategic planning session, but to the chagrin of Commissioner Gilman, we are interested in hiring somebody to work for us in communications, but also to be a grant person, an in-house grant application person. And that would be a way that we could offer assistance to all types of municipalities, not just Peninsula Township, in these types of projects. And having somebody that all that they did was scan for these types of things. That's what they would do at that level. Obviously, we're talking about them in multiple different ways, but this is just one example of the value of potentially somebody that was trained especially in grants, but also would be trained in communications and could talk about it with people. I love putting Jason on the spot. And so I just want to say that my point is it fits overall into our policy changes that we're trying to implement with strategic planning. But it also gives us an example of value of how we can partner with Peninsula Township or East Bay Township or the airport or whoever in the future on these things.
And before you leave this topic, I have a couple specific things I'd like to add. When the memo came up, which I wrote based on what the working group decided last summer, there are some specific small action items that we were requested. And we reviewed this again at our new working group meeting. And I've sort of tasked Jay, and I don't, he doesn't directly work for me, but we talked about that. We promised some very specific things, getting a new fence up there and improving the barricades. And I don't want to have to talk about that yet. I don't want to have to ride Brad about it, and I don't want to have to call Wayne. I expect that stuff to be done.
Yes.
It was in the original memo, which the commissioners that were here in September, all of us acknowledged, yeah, okay, that's what we said. Great. Now, I don't want to visit these again, because if we want to move forward, it's really hard if we're always going behind. The township has money in the matching funds for local road improvements. And I suggested we use the local road improvement money to get a decent fence that makes it safe and traversable for pedestrians and bicyclists. And a bet of that, we've apparently approved the access gates. Make sure that the people that are, the stakeholders in the subdivision have access to their beach. And I'd just like to see that done. When I drive out there in 60 days, if that's how long it takes, I'd like to say, I'll ride my bike through there and this is good and it's safe. And until we come up with something else, we've taken action on these.
We did talk about that with Mr. Olson, I believe Mr. Raphael, just locals that live in the area and the interest of that specific. Alan would know much better, but he's correct. That was something where we discussed a timeline and Jay said when the mud's gone in the spring that we would get that done. So I agree with Alan. I don't think we need to talk about this again. I mean, I would be willing to look at making a motion to setting a deadline for the road commission to follow through on that and getting it done.
Can we, how about we ask that we have cost estimates shipped to us before we
So we know what we're talking about. I think that
You
would.
want cost estimates?
Yeah, Jay's already got those. He's just not here right now, but he will, I can make sure we get them. Yeah, it'll be, we'll get it to you before. Okay. So, because I know we are waiting, we're just waiting to get things moved in there. And we have a contractor that he has talked to, we have a reasonable price to do it.
To do a fence,
To
to
do a
do some
fence.
gates and
The
some.
turnaround was the other thing.
Yeah, we,
Well, the,
and our action tonight's gonna basically require that. Correct.
the turnaround, that's something that has to be designed and built. So,
But you know, if we decertify, we have to.
yeah, we're gonna do something.
We have to secure what's there.
We'll post a sign, not open vehicular traffic.
So what happened, we decertify, it'll happen with the determination. We have obligations to meet the fencing requirement to no vehicles.
But we will, yeah, and I know we are planning on doing that, and the problem we have with our ditching is, our ditching machine is awful darn heavy. And so we have to get in there with some smaller equipment to do anything on that ditch, and we don't have what we need.
We have a skid steer.
Well, how do we determine a timeline to ensure that this is completed?
I just don't want to, I don't want to beat this to death, but
Right.
the Peninsula, people in Peninsula Township would like towards building this solution together. Let's just get it done, Brad. You push on it.
Can we do it by May 1st? And then on the contractor.
Depending on the contractor, I mean, we'll know, we can definitely give you an update in the April meeting as far as where we stand with the contractor.
Thank you.
Will that work? That's satisfying.
Yeah, it's just our April meeting is the last part of the month.
Yeah, but if we're working with a contractor, we also have to make sure the contractor can do it.
Right, but a contractor update could mean that you've already determined one, picked one, set it up, and you're just informing us of it at the April meeting.
Well, it
right?
depends on the cost. I mean, it may be done if it's less than if it's under my spending authority, it's gonna be done by then.
And if it's over your spending authority, you would let us know,
Yeah, and then you would approve it that night.
and then we could get rid of it and
If
get
we,
it done.
if we had to, we could always add it on to the special meeting for the strategic plan.
If we had
If that's over the
to.
number.
That way it determines it's done.
Okay. Any additional discussion on? Moving on to the next item, which is the Act 51 resolution.
Okay. So the amendment to the Act 51 language 2022. Quick, I'll just read it. Whereas staff has conducted a physical inventory of Grand Traverse County Act 51 road mileage, and whereas the previous MDOT accepted mileage was 1,021 miles 24.6, and the corrected MAC inventory is 1,021.19, a difference of 0.27 miles. The Act 51 millage for 2022 must reflect this result of the physical inventory and reported map mileage. Therefore, it is resolved that the Board of County Road Commissioners, Grand Traverse County, directs staff to prepare the 2022 Act 51 mileage report to reflect the total of 1,021.19 miles. This is a reduction of 1,421 feet for the section of bluff, which would decertify it, allowing for travel through there by the pedestrian, bicycles, whoever. It effectively becomes a right of way that is not maintained to county highway standards, but it is accessible to the public if they desire to traverse through that area. And the basic guidance from the MDOT is at any time, you can go back in and we can make it certifiable, and we would certify it at the end, at the condition of the roads at December 31st, whatever year that we complete the project. And then our certification would go back up to include that 1,421.
I want to make one comment. The road commission must certify to the state of Michigan what roads we maintain for vehicle traffic. And that is how they determined our Act 51 money. We have not maintained this section of the road for 3 years. There comes a point when we have to for lack of a better phrase, true up what we actually do. So we are moving to, if the motion gets made and passed, we will decertify that section of Bluff Road, only indicating that we will not be plowing it, basically. And
And we will
servicing
not be-
and mowing and all that
Right.
stuff.
No maintenance
All the
will occur within
maintenance
that
happens because we, one, can't get trucks through there. But it is no means, do not get confused with abandoning the road. We are
It's still a
not.
public right of way for
Public
the
right of way.
access of general traffic.
Just to clarify for public consumption, decertifying does not take away any options from the grant.
It just basically says that we are not maintaining the county roadway standards and therefore does not open to
Well,
vehicular
it's the only thing we
traffic
can
as a road.
Because by leaving it certified, we're telling the state we are totally maintaining it just like we do.
Which is a lot.
every other
And that
road.
it's open to
Not what
vehicular
we're
traffic.
doing.
Right, and it is not open because it is
Motion
not.
to adopt new Act 51 resolution.
Is there a second?
Support.
Moved and seconded. Is there any additional?
We've clarified for sure
Yes,
that decertifying a very small portion of Bluff Road does not in any way hinder us in moving forward with applying for grants or seeking legislative funding for
it
this road.
does nothing of this, it does not, and it hinder our ability to do anything. I have spoken multiple times with the County Road Association General Counsel, and he is pretty much the one that is the expert legally of what is required and what is not. It does not stop us from doing anything. All it does is take away the fact that it's a road and becomes effectively like if you're walking through a park. You know, it's a still in that public access. People can walk through there, they can ride their bike through there. But we are not maintaining it. And if they do, they take their chances to go through there as you would in state park or state forest land.
And the
Excuse me,
road
this,
retains the right of way.
this is,
Right
this
away
is,
stays the same.
this is out of order, but there's 1,200 feet within the closed section. Where's the other 200 and some feet? You're gonna be, there's houses at each end. You're gonna be decertifying part of the road that actually has houses. I think 1,200 is just almost on target, so I don't know where the 1,400 feet comes from. Because you may be cutting off a couple of driveways. but-
There are no driveways affected by this.
Any further questions from the board?
Yeah.
Roll call.
Trees, what about trees, if they fall. Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Chasm, absent and excused, and Underwood.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve the letter or would you approve?
Well, we
Tie
approved
barred
it.
it.
We tie barred.
Tie barred it, but I want to go ahead and take a vote on that too. Is that okay?
Move to approve the letter
So
as amended.
I will support that.
roll call?
Lehman,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Chasm, absent and excused, Horn,
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
So I wanted to bring up something Commissioner Andrews said that I really liked. Not here, so I can't discuss it with her, but the idea of a board resolution for statement of working with Peninsula Township on this project, I kind of like that idea. The letter didn't come to us in the way that I wanted it to, in the way that would have given the public appropriate time and consumption for it. We did a quick amendment on it, but the letter is fine. The letter is approved. The letter can be given to Isaiah and he can go to Lansing and do whatever he wants to do with it. But I like the idea of a resolution in our board packet that everybody can see that we will vote on at this next meeting. And I wanted to also add what you had brought up, which was an additional letter specifically for our legislators, Commissioner Cuffia and Roth, who sits as Chair of House Transport, and Senator Demus, that we would have that would specifically accompany any of us or anyone that needed to go to Lansing to have meetings. But I think that a board resolution is really valuable too, a letter specifically addressed. The letter could mimic, honestly, word for word, what our letter says here. I'm not saying, but specifically addressed, because we didn't indicate in the draft kind of who it's to or how it's detailed. So I like the idea of having it addressed to our representatives and senator, but I also like the idea of a letter that could be used just to submit in addition to grant applications to show our support. I think a board resolution is very valuable in that way too.
I think the board would be more than willing to entertain a resolution if your working group wanted to come up with one and bring it back. Maybe even a joint one with the township.
I mean, I can talk to Isaiah about it and we can come up with something.
So that's an actual resolution.
And then we'll know that it's placed on that public agenda. Everybody can see it. We can all see it. Certainly anybody could have input on it. It's not like it's set in stone, but I like that idea to give us more time than 6:30 this morning to kind of, get a chance to go over everything. And we can work together on wording for that. And also, Isaiah, I'd love your input on if you think that it would be valuable to have this letter that's specifically to our legislators have any different wording in it that might be helpful. And then our board could vote on it in our public meeting and have that opportunity. But other than that, we can't talk to more than one of each other because we're a 5-person board. So it makes it difficult to get that done. So I will work with you on that.
Okay.
To get that done before our next road commission.
We can work on that together. I would propose that you and I hammer something out to take to our respective boards prior to the next working group meeting, since that's 50 days out still.
I can do that. When does Peninsula Township meet?
We are but we've got one the second week of April. So I'll work on getting something together, try to get it through my board, but I'll get your tentative approval on it first. And if we
Great.
need to work on a
I
reconciliation.
think we can make this done and just have that joint show of support. There is absolutely no way we will receive funding from Lansing if we are not a unified team. It's not possible. They don't even acknowledge Knuckles North exists in funding, let alone if we are showing that we are opposed to each other. So it's really important, and Isaiah and I are happy to be, the faces for that and make it happen. But under no circumstances should there be any animosity between the groups. This letter will solidify that.
Thank you.
On to resolution 126, local bridge program application.
And Wayne is not here, so.
All right.
Just a resolution of support.
Take a minute here.
They have a long drive back out.
Thank you.
You know what, we're gonna go to East for 5 minutes.
Okay.
Were you in the service? Jason, were you in the service?
Not really. That's more of a virtual brief.
Oh, okay. Alan, did you serve? No, Brad, you did, didn't you? No?
Thought about it for a while now.
How are they doing?
I was going to the Marines.
They're down better.
Huh?
There's medical examiner.
Really?
Until I went in and I
To the end of the game.
saw one, I almost lost my lunch and said, that's not for me.
Wasn't like stripping down a rabbit, was it?
Not the same, not at all.
No,
I cleaned a lot of animals, but it's not the same.
my son was the county.
That's what you're talking about, right?
Are they in white?
I think you would have got,
I
think you would have got. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, they're green. Oh, they're tied.
It validates our mortality.
Yes.
Break. Oh. Because it's a break.
Taking a break.
Break.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, next week I'm good.
No, I hear drop some
The
money.
month of March is great.
Oh, sorry.
No, yeah, I wanna. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure. I have not, like I say, I have been, I'm going the entire month. I'm going for about a week, but next week.
I can't imagine.
Half hour. Yeah. We'll figure it out. And I'll get you, do I have your email?
Okay, so she's gonna take it back.
Right down here. I'll send you that.
Or here, like, I don't know.
is, you know, some of those guys. Paul's been working on that for us. Paul's working on that application. We were there.
I don't want to be on the news.
Yes, that's South Ray.
Do they need to have somebody?
They're just. Yeah.
So I need to know, does that mean you're coming back or is Kate?
You know, I talked to them after.
Are you
Up and talked to us. when we met him.
Okay, we don't have that much longer probably, but I.
Just in general.
So I want to make sure Kate's okay with driving in. Okay.
So that's, thing.
Okay. I, right, this is what was added.
delaying my dinner. So, and it was from that.
It was 2:00 in the morning, so it started.
Well, yes, you just finished having the design service,
Called
right?
us for years.
Yeah.
And
And I'll have him go quick through this one, and then bam, you're next, and then out.
we need to deal with the fact that there is a program in place. And we are more than willing to do it, but you have to start with this.
Is that the extra?
Yeah.
I've ever seen it.
You know, we do special.
Federal, state.
That was when South Airport.
Oh, what are you doing?
I think we're just.
And
Just let's add.
Last minute.
Oh, yeah.
Explaining money. Where we have 3 Mile Road.
No, his final comment was, we want more.
Yeah, so we have, we have a contractor coming in to. rip-
That was expanded in the original Herman Hammond plan that got stopped like 10 years ago. That, how many lanes is that road?
Not 2 miles, but I think.
Yeah.
Specifically including expanding that in our Herman Hammond project though? I don't think we are.
So I turned around, I bought some equipment.
Because we're spending $1 million on something that
A
will be
laser.
wide enough.
On the size of this table, it's going on the garage. I'll be making it for.
I guess conceivably, we have to get an idea of
Wow,
time with the bridge completion. If it's 10 years from now, then that wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
All right, we'll call back to order.
Oh, I love the diehards here though.
This is just a resolution to support our application to the local bridge program for replacement of the Clayton Road Bridge over the Boardman River.
And so we have talked about this, we've put it in each year, we have not been approved yet, so this is just simply for this year's application.
And this is a bigger bridge.
This is the fight, it would be.
As I recall, we're gonna make it a wide, right?
What's the scope of the project?
It's a complete replacement, wider and longer bridge.
Yeah, we've been trying to get that, so.
Yeah.
Biter is a culvert bridge.
Just on the other side of the roundabout.
Right.
We'd be replacing with another wood structure like we did.
No, it wouldn't be a wood structure, it'd be a concrete.
Concrete, okay.
But it's 4 lanes?
No, what would the final width be?
You did 2 lanes with 2 lanes wider shoulders.
Wide shoulders. It's all bicyclists or whatever.
That makes it better. Then it's a little bit of an improvement over the current, what we have.
Well, keep things moving. I'd move we adopt the resolution of support for the fiscal year 2026 local bridge program application.
Your second? Second. Seconded, that could be a voice vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right.
That's a 20%.
Yeah, you gotta agree to the 20% match.
Where's that?
Okay.
Where's the 20% match?
It's where the blank is. That's always what we've done in years.
Yeah, it's what it's been. It is, it's always been the same. It's just.
So you're telling me I need a roll call because it's 20% match?
Yeah.
All right, let's do a roll call. Make sure. Well, we can get it. 20%.
Yeah, but if you get it, you don't have to use it, right? We aren't committing any specific.
But
funds or
if you
budgeting
get
for
it and you don't use it on that type of thing, that's a big thing against you for future use.
So let's do a roll call vote if we could.
Just get ourselves covered.
Gilman,
Yes.
Kazan, absent, excuse, Corn. Excuse. Corn,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
I am never missing a board.
Please note in the minutes that Hyder was absent and confused.
I have to ask one clarifying question, just so I learn on a rapid pace. Hypothetically, we got this grant. It has a 20% match in it. We don't know how much that is. How do we And you don't
We-
use
we
it, you
make it
lose it, or you.
It's a primary road.
Primary road.
We'd make it work. It's primary. road.
Okay.
I mean, we have time to plan. It's a 2026.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
The next is bridge design, Diamond Park, Green Lake Township. This will be roll call vote.
This is for design services for superstructure replacement on Diamond Park over the Old Betsy River. This is another two-lane road, and I'll be using the same width of the superstructure.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the bridge design services for Diamond Park, Green Lake Township.
That's what Cindy,
I don't know. Oh, it does say it, not to exceed 180,000.
is there a second?
And just before I second, I'll support it for the sake of argument.
That's where I'm going with this. Yeah, we need to
Just talk, just brief.
go ahead, Jason.
Well, okay, well, my, this bridge is falling apart right now.
Yeah, it's currently posted.
Yeah.
It's currently closed.
No, but it's posted for.
Oh, wait. Yeah. That's all.
Oh, my question is, how does this fit into our, it's a local road. How does this fit into our funding plan for local roads?
We can transfer money from primaries to locals up to 25% without doing anything. So we would actually transfer funds from primaries to locals to pay for this. This is this and Beitner are the last two bridges we have that need work. Every other bridge that is within the county has been restored recently and will not need any additional major investment for the next.
And we don't need somebody to be driving a truck across it, you know.
No, I'm just saying that it's $180,000 that we're.
The engineering.
Just the engineering that we're gonna spend on a local road.
So it's either that or we're at the point, Bill, would you say we're probably within a few years of this being a closed bridge because of the condition of it? I mean, are we getting?
Not knowing anything about the bridge itself, if it's posted, yeah, it's gonna deteriorate fast.
I know we lowered the posting rate, this last go round of inspection, so.
Where are we at right now?
I believe the lowest is 18 tons. It's varied by axles.
Okay.
Yeah. So eventually it comes to a point of, do you fix it now when it's a little more cost effective instead of waiting till other parts cave in? Or do you not, because it will be closed at some point?
How long before our plow trucks can't go over it?
Well, let's put it this way, 18 tons is pretty darn close.
I was just wondering.
If they
That's
get,
for a single axle, if I'm remembering correctly, single axle.
okay, so we're double axle with our trucks, but I mean, you're carrying 10 tons
Yeah.
in an almost
That's-
8-ton
was-
truck.
yeah.
So, yeah, it's bad. This was one that was originally supposed to be covered under the bridge bundling.
Yeah.
And, you know, the deputy governor was here saying, oh, we're gonna give you money, and then they just never did. Because we're not in the.
So when we do this, we're gonna design it and then we can apply, is that the?
No, I believe we already have funds allocated for this as a federal project. So we are designing, and then when we have the design, we will go
It's
to
gonna be
bid. And then we will have it, we have the 80-20 match.
It'll be a great, okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're almost.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it federal because it's a bridges thing?
Yes.
Is that, okay.
Build the bridge over at Bluff Farm.
I know I'm out of order, but I would like to clarify that this says the Little Betsy River, that is a separate tributary. This is actually Betsy Creek. Little Betsy River flows in north of Thompsonville.
And I'm sure you have paddled it.
Yes, I paddled both of them.
All right.
Thank you for
We
the
need to-
clarification.
I wouldn't even double check Mitch's, yeah, he knows.
Just
Like,
make
he for sure knows.
Yeah, make sure that we're dotting our i's and crossing our rivers and creeks.
So. Kylie,
Chasm, absent and excused. Corn,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Gilman.
Yeah.
And Underwood.
yes. Next I have portable signal system. Wayne's not here. Brad, you want to explain why it's just
Yeah,
gonna be
so-
improvement, but it's a little bit more because. of-
Yeah, so we had talked about this as part of the budget. And when we got the prices together, we realized we needed to have a little more of a system that we can hook into our cabinets. But this is a design that if something were to go wrong, like it did when we had the problem down at the airport and Rainier / Barlow, this is a system that sets up at the intersection. It's like the orange crane that sits over it, and it has the signals in place. So it's designed in case something goes wrong at an intersection that we can immediately put up temporary signals. Or while we're working with it, we can still have those signals there to be able to control traffic while we're taking down the old and putting up the new. And it is a little more expensive than we originally anticipated due to inflation, plus the fact that we needed to have a little bit more advanced model to deal with some of our signals.
So you already budgeted 160, but we need 200.
Because it'll be able to talk to the signaling.
I want to make a
system.
motion that
Yeah.
we purchase
It's a
this.
good thing.
Okay.
I'll support it.
Okay. Any further? Kylie, roll call, please.
Court,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Chasm. Yes, that excused, Underwood.
Yes.
And to clarify, we don't currently own a piece of equipment like this.
Which is interesting. Next is the upgrade of the radios and the vehicles. As you recall, we applied for.
We applied for an ARPA funding grant and they told us no, so we still need to upgrade our radios. Our radios are not compatible with the rest of the county. The system that we're buying is a My Deal price, and it is who the county uses. We are not getting the Motorola radios. We don't need to spend that much money. We can deal with the Kenwood radios because they're about half the price. And we don't expect our guys to go into a fire that they have to worry about these radios getting wet in a fire extinguishing situation. So we are fine with the Kenwoods, and it is more than we originally budgeted, but this covers us with all of the new vehicles we've added. So we are over 100 vehicles that will have radios in them, plus handhelds for traffic control. And this also allows us to connect to everybody in the county and everybody that's on this system throughout the state. It's paid for by the State Association of all the radios. And they actually, we can talk to people from every county with these radios. So if there's an emergency and we have to have assistance here in the county, or we go to provide assistance, we're all on the same radio system. We just changed that.
It's on the 800 megahertz emergency broadcast.
Just to clarify, did we have bids for this?
No, this is My Deal. My Deal pricing.
This was my project at the county. When I was a county commissioner, I was the one that brought the 800 megahertz system to the central dispatch. And it was hard. I had to convince every one of the commissioners that didn't want it. The 800 megahertz system at that time, this would have been 2014, was critical for the safety of our first responders. We had parts of our county that people couldn't hear anything. However, talking to Jason Torrey, the dispatch director, have you discussed what, I mean, the county is due to upgrade, like the 800 megahertz system, we didn't expect to last us more than 10 years. And this was 2014 when we did this. We may have implemented 2015, but I started the project in 2014. So are we sure that we're not investing this much into a system that won't be compliant?
They are not changing systems. They have just added another radio tower at River to cover the spoke because we had towers going around the outside edges. So they added the River Road to fill in the blanks, and they are not changing the system. They will be changing radios out for some of their people. And they will be going to a slightly higher power radio for some of their emergency folks that have to go into buildings. But we talked to him in detail about this. We talked to Eric Bird in detail about this. And Eric gave us a radio. We walked around the entire building here. We have perfect coverage within our building. The only place they've had no problem, or that they've had real problems, is in the hospital, simply because there are lead lined walls. So other than that, they have not had an issue with it, and they plan on staying with it. It makes it much easier for us to communicate with dispatch too.
Have we been given an idea of longevity for this system?
The radios are good for 8 to 10 years.
And you think that the county will be working with this system?
Oh yeah, we're not gonna move because the whole state's on this
Right.
system.
It's a state, it's somebody who was there when we created this.
You
the
remember,
state,
yeah,
We set aside that 800 megahertz for first responders.
right.
I mean, it was a.
We weren't
it was
on
$100
it.
It was $100 million
Yeah.
plus project,
It was.
which we took a lot of grief of in the late 90s.
It was hard to believe that by the mid 2010s, we were not on that
Yeah.
system and our firefighters were not getting through.
So I don't see the state changing. They might upgrade systems, but they're not going to change
Okay.
800 megahertz.
I just want to make sure, because that's a lot of money.
So,
It's a lot of money.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. We purchase the system for $398, $246, the ideal price from a great local vendor, Grand Traverse Mobile Communications.
is there a second?
I will support it.
Any additional discussion?
I just, my deal or not, I just, this is the kind of money where you get bids, you know, the county actually had an opportunity to save some money and they didn't.
We leased them. We did a lease program.
Yeah.
We didn't do my deal at the county.
Yeah.
Well, we talked, like I say, when we talked to Jason and we talked to Eric, they both said the best deal that we're gonna get is through the My Deal with the Kenwoods. Because they had looked at other options for other township uses too, and this is exactly what they told us to go with. And we figured they use the radios all the time, so that's why we went with the system and the My Deal pricing, simply because they've already bid. I mean, it's been negotiated, it's been bid through the My Deal programs. So,
Yeah, this comes back to, you know,
The number of vendors.
the number of vendors, and sometimes you have to feed the young vendors so they can get into the program, so they can get qualified later down the road. This is actually one of my first, when I got on the board the first time, it's one of my main complaints was that we would often go by the My Deal or, you know, these predetermined packages or pre-approved at the time. The problem was pre-approved vendors. And sometimes, you know, there might be a new startup. How do they get anything? Do they go to a smaller county first and then get approved? Do they go to a smaller municipality? You know, sometimes you have to step outside of the box a little, build a little competition amongst your vendors. And, but that's fine. I mean, you know, I'll vote no, because just because I think it still needs to go out for a bid. And, but it's, I don't really object to it. I think we need the radios. If we need them, we need them, you know.
Yeah, our radios-
Although I will say this, I think there are cellular solutions that would have solved the problem. At the county level and at our county, that'd be a heck of a lot cheaper. You know, 100, you know.
We have many dead zones for people who use cells in this county also.
Yeah.
This at least has coverage for the entire county. That is one of the selling facts. And when we have, especially during winter operations, when we need somebody to assist in an area to get multiple lane roads cleared, we need to be able to talk to the entire
Well,
staff. at
here's
once.
the other thing, okay? Is this equipment, does it handle data?
Yes.
Okay, does it handle, I mean, like high-speed data? I mean, for example, I mean, if you wanted to put a camera on a truck and be able to watch it here, could you do that with this? Because I can tell you, a good cell with a repeater on the top of the cab, you're gonna be able to hit everything around. It could be engineered, it could be done. You'll be able to hit everywhere. But I understand you want to communicate with the other agencies. That's all well and fine. I think there are ways to step outside of the box instead of just going with the same old. And that's just.
Well, and Jason, I'm not, I don't know what our needs are. The staff recommended this. I've heard these guys. If you know, are you opposed to trying to bid this or something, or do you think that's just a dead horse?
Well, we attempted to bid and got no other response, except for the company that originally put in our radios, the old system. They didn't give us a price until the amount was released in the bid, and then they undercut it by $3,000.
Yeah, that's not acceptable. I mean, I
Right.
don't,
So-
you can't play that game. That's not how you play the game.
Yeah, but they would not give us a
But
price.
they wouldn't give us a price to begin with.
No, until this
Yeah.
came out in the board
Oh,
packet, then they
okay.
undercut it by 3,000.
If that's real, then I'll go over it just because it's just, I mean, at some point you have to move on, but you can't play games like that either. You know, it just-
The
Okay.
cellular equipment doesn't work in like the August 2nd storm we had, August 2nd, 2015. We wouldn't have had communications with our road.
These things use repeaters too. They could be knocked out just the same.
Because we, you know, we did think out of the box at the county, and we didn't go with My Deal, and I put a year of my life into that project, and it was because we had a firefighter go through a floor, South County, and they couldn't get the mayday. The other firefighters were going into a house when the floor was coming down with one of their firefighters in it. And why didn't they get it? Because there's dead zones in South County. We were assured that a cellular system would not have saved that firefighter. By the way, he didn't pass away. I shouldn't say it that way, but he was heavily injured, and our other firefighters went in not having any idea that they were walking into a collapse. That was the impetus for me getting this program started. And I was assured by everybody cellular wouldn't have solved that. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying they're walking into a fire, but they are in storms where we lose service. And I think the 800 system is incredibly expensive, but has proven itself for the last however many years at the county. So I feel good about voting for it, but I agree with you on the bid system. We have got to reevaluate our bidding system here, and we need to give precedence to local vendors. And this doesn't do that. And so my vote, I don't want to.
These are local.
The other guys right down on the floor.
Yeah, but My Deal isn't always the way to go for local vendors. So I don't want to
Maybe you could
say, well,
just
grab
go
My
to-
Deal.
Go
Exactly.
to- go
My
to-
Deal isn't
go to Harold,
always the way.
go to Harold and say, hey, how much?
I love Harold.
But we buy our pickup trucks through there, we guess.
Yeah.
Still you can-
So I mean, we need to
Yeah,
look at
right.
that. So I don't want my deal vote to mean that I don't care about preference for local vendors. In this particular one, I feel confident in voting for this one.
Well, I appreciate it because this will finally get, I believe, everybody on the 800 system in the county, correct?
Yeah, because originally the county, when the county was putting this together, they were supposed to include the Grand Traverse County Road Commission as part of the radio system.
True.
And then they just said, no, we're not gonna bother with you guys.
So central dispatch can finally get to our people too.
Yes.
If they need it.
Yes.
So.
So when they, and it's most important during the snow events, but the other thing is during Cherry Festival, we still have service. We don't have to worry about a phone that's overwhelmed the system. So all of our guys can still communicate.
All right.
I like it.
Kylie?
Lehman,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Chasm, absent, inexcused, Corn,
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
I'm struggling.
I did get Ron Klaus to vote for this system back then too. That was a big feather in my cap.
I'm pretty
Feather in my
careful, I'm
cap.
pretty careful with
I
it.
know, because it's a good system.
Wow. Next item, mowing service.
All right, so this is the same thing we do, they do mow here, as needed, usually weekly or other week, every other week, depending on the season. They mow the Kingsley Garage once a year, but they also mow the state, rest stop up on 31, which is a direct pass through.
I'll move that with the board approves Chandler Outdoors as the overall low bidder for mowing services for Grand Traverse County Road Commission properties.
Second.
You seconded, Joe?
No, is there a second? Is there a
Oh, you
second?
can second it.
No, that's okay. Is there a second?
I'll support it.
Any more discussion?
I have one question.
Yes.
Is it our board policy to say something like overall low bidder? I
No,
don't,
I just, it's.
no, it's not you. You read it. I mean,
Sometimes we don't go with the low.
yeah, I
bid,
don't think we should all the time.
But this is somebody that we've used in the past.
And it's
they are
your
still low bid.
procedure to print that in the, that's how we do it? Is that normal?
Sometimes.
I've
we
never
do.
seen
It
that
depends on it depends on if it is the low bid or if it is somebody that we are recommending. If not, we will say that they were not the low bidder.
Yes. Oh, I thought you.
We can
called.
change
Oh,
that.
Yeah, yes.
Again.
Okay.
Gilman,
Yes.
Chasm, absent and excused, Corn,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
I'm not letting you watch that basketball game.
No, I see that, yes.
Come on, that's-
Maybe Larry can update us.
Do you want it?
Just one of the screens.
Michigan State 73, Kansas State 77.
We care, what is this? Oh, the college.
Right there. All right.
Or move the page up one more, Larry.
All right, janitorial services, they clean here, they clean Kingsley.
They're the same people, right?
They're not the same as we had in the past, no.
Oh, this is new.
This is a new contractor coming in to do it.
Why, changing cleaning services, huh?
I thought you liked the current, what, like, was price a factor is what I'm asking.
Yes. There's your,
Yeah, yeah, I read the bids. I guess I did not know the name of the current, so I didn't realize that that was a change.
yeah, so this is, they came in lower, so we selected them. They're, they're all local, so we selected the low bid. And if they fail, then we'll move on.
That's really hitting them,
Is
isn't
there a
it?
motion?
The total cost, if you scroll down a little bit farther, Larry, there should be, no, I guess it wasn't in there, or maybe it was. It was.
I'm trying to mentally do the gymnastics here.
$1.93 times
Yeah.
52 weeks, 110.
It was,
It's pretty close. I mean,
$104.
well, we do,
who's doing it right now?
Heather, who's doing it?
My sister's helper.
And
I
she
mean,
was the
they're all fabulous
that
companies.
was
This
way
is not
down.
like about
Yeah,
that,
they're
but
way up. Yeah.
Yeah, and the professional building services, there was some discussion about them also, and we had some issues with some of the things that we
I
had.
guess what I just need you to tell me is you chose this for a variety of reasons and not just as the overall low bidder.
Yeah, we feel
Okay,
comfortable to
that's-
start, and if they fail, then we'll move on to the next.
Yeah, you always qualify that. If they're not sufficient,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
kind of stuff,
Yeah.
you're gonna get rid of them.
Yeah, we're not.
Move
gonna
to
take it
approve
from
DC
other guys.
cleaning
Thank you.
for janitorial services for the Traverse City and Kingsley locations.
Is there a second? Support. Kylie?
Chasm, absent and excused. Corn,
Yes,
Freeman,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes. On to the next. This is the building design of the tool crib room. Who's gonna talk about that, Brad?
Well, Dan's not here. He's on his way to Tennessee, so.
All right, well, you are.
Yes, so we are running out of space and we are trying to accomplish multiple things here in allowing us to separate the parts that go to the shop for automotive repair and the parts that go out to our crew. Because the stuff that we are now getting for the crew, we now have like 10 generators for that we purchased for the signals. We've got more chainsaws, so we're trying to get it so that we have a place to store all these and also store safety equipment for our crew that we need to have for them, depending on what projects they're going on. And quite simply, we are out of space here. I mean, we just don't have any space left to be adding it, and we need to add some additional storage for the stuff that the crew is using.
So the total cost would be 30,000 plus or minus
Yeah.
for basically a lean-to?
No, it's a
Shed?
complete building inside the garage. We're adding on to a complete building within the garage, part of it's caged,
Okay.
where we can store.
Okay, so we're utilizing space that we have right now
Yes.
and we're
But
essentially
it's-
creating a
it's-
new cage.
It's just creating a cage and a room that we can secure some of our more expensive accessories as well as store additional accessories that we need.
Generators and stuff. Go in that room. And we can't just fence it. I mean,
If someone's gonna have to sit out there, it's kind of a bad situation to be sitting in the garage with all the exhaust fumes. So the fenced in
I
area
got you.
stays
I got you.
for the
Okay.
stuff that can be stored out there, but then we also need to have
And
somebody.
this is including like ventilation and.
Yeah, it's moving some electric, putting in electric, everything.
All right.
Is there a motion?
Make the motion that we approve that we award award this short-term addition project to Lambert Construction Services for the bid price of $30,000 plus or minus.
Is there a second?
Sure.
The reason those are blank is because the bid came in after we did the.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just got the bids, so.
Okay, Kylie?
Court,
Yes.
Lehman, Gilman,
Yes.
Chasm, absent and excused, Underwood.
Yes. Next item, fleet tracking.
Larry?
So this is a pilot project we've been working on for the last year. We are really trying to get a lot of information out of our trucks, diagnostics for the mechanics, plow up, plow down. This program will also give us the ability to see our plow trucks with a little delay on them. This is called GeoTab. It does work if we wanted to do cameras later. It's integrating with, it can integrate with cameras. But the big takeaway that we're trying to do is really get it so we can read off the truck what is being spread, how much it's being spread, where it's being spread. Right now, the guys will write down what they're spreading and where they're spreading it. And, you know, that's a lot after a 10-hour shift or whatnot. So we're really trying to use technology to take that out of their hands so they don't have to think about it. They're just get in the truck and drive. This will also give us the ability to integrate with our work order management system down the road. We'll be able to get that in place for future analysis of what we're doing, where we're doing, and how we're doing. This is also something that can be a training tool for our fleet or for our drivers. We got a new driver and he's spreading a lot of salt or he's not spreading enough salt. We can see that. We can also see completion. So we'll see route completion. They're done. They're 15% done, 20% done, 70% done, 100% done. So.
And this is the stuff that's going to be available on our website for the general public.
Curious.
15 minutes away.
What technology does it use to send the information back?
Cellular.
I'll be darned.
And storm. When there's a bad storm, we won't have it.
But what it does go into dead areas.
Sure.
It still keeps that information.
And then it'll pump it back out. It'll show the route. Sure.
Which is okay when you're not
That's
falling
okay.
through a house fire.
Okay, yeah, but
But the
hopefully
other
our
thing-
drivers aren't falling through house fires.
Exactly.
I mean, I just.
But the other thing with this too, and I want to make sure you're all aware, this also is going to go on other vehicles. It's not just plows.
It's not
We're
just-
talking about putting it on
No, no.
mowers. We're talking about
Yeah.
putting it on graders. We're talking about every passenger vehicle we have. So we know where our fleet is and what they're doing and where we're spending money so that when we have a citizen who says, you haven't done anything in this area for the last 5 months, we can say, no, these are the work orders that we did within that area.
But a resident also with this new technology can go online, look at where they live on the map, and they can see how long it has been since a plow has gone by their area.
Yes,
that's correct.
And you guys are able to see things like if salt and sand were put down or
Yes.
the plow blade was up or
So
down.
I'll make the motion that we approve the purchase of the GeoTab solution to equip our fleet in the amount of $33,639.96, more or less.
Is there a second?
Yes. Goes down.
I mean, just.
But
We just alternate.
yeah, well, we need.
I know.
We need another support.
I know.
No, Mike, I'm laughing about that. This isn't a my deal thing, and there's no other bidders because this is the particular thing we have to integrate.
This is what we liked. We went through and we looked at 3 different options, 4 different options.
Samsara.
They are the
Verizon.
best service for what we want to accomplish. And the price is actually relatively similar to what we used to use with Verizon.
I'm just asking, I'm not.
Yeah.
And the
And
re-
it's-
the
and it's-
reporting that we're asking for is difficult for other things.
So-
Other people.
And just so you know, I'm a big Larry fan. I'm all into this technology.
You need to spend a couple hours.
Well, that's,
with
no,
him.
but that's, we need to do that because I need to get caught up on our app and
Oh, yeah.
how we're rolling it out a little bit more too.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so we're gonna make some time. We'll do that if it doesn't take up too much of your time.
No, for sure.
We want to make sure you guys are aware of what's going.
Yeah.
Any additional?
Oh, you didn't call the question.
Oh,
No additional? Kylie?
Lehman,
Yes.
Gilman,
yes.
Chasm, Absent and excused, Corn,
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes. Next one is engagement survey.
Right. So you guys should each have a summary sheet, somewhere in the file. I'm just gonna go over them. So typically we try to hit the engagement survey near the end of the year, so that's why this is called the 2022, because it essentially is for last year. We did take that end of February, just the beginning of March. All the staff was given the survey. Had the same questions as 2021, along with, I added many additional like short answer types to where we could get more information and maybe solidify and put that information more concrete as far as when they were picking like a multiple choice in the past. I think we were only like 2 people short. We were almost near 100% participation.
And I was one that was not. Just so you know.
Skew the
We
results.
won't know your
Mr.
favorite snack.
I can tell you what my favorite snack is. It's Skittles.
I think I knew that.
Skittles.
So I'll just kind of just pop over a few of these, but in the area of growth, advancement, promotion, and setting personal goals, we had about 62% said that their path is clear, while the rest would like more direction. So that is an area that we need to continue to work on. Asked them, everybody, what their most fulfilling project or duty was. And we received a wide variety of answers from almost every aspect of work that we actually do here, which I found pretty fulfilling. Each of those, when I took a look at kind of when they wrote their why, it was something that they were able to do, that they could tell that they were making a difference, that they were here part of the organization, even if their part was like small, they could see where it was making a difference in the community. Another theme that would show through there was, we have such a majority of people who like to be here because they also like to serve. The question was asked if they would be happy to spend the rest of their career at the road commission, and I was quite happy to see that 88% of people reported that they would.
That's actually a pretty good number.
Yeah.
When you're talking about somebody's lifetime,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
career. So it's good.
Last year, we also asked, and we talked a lot about mentoring and mentorship. And last year, 58% said they had a mentor, and this year that had moved up to 69%. And so that was one of the things that we started to work on, especially in the crew. We had a lot, I want to say, when I reported to the county the other day, we had like 8 new hires since this time last year. So that many new people coming in, really do require having a mentor. I do think we had more work to do on that.
And this is where this institutional memory really helps out. This will be good for that, I think. Next time around, I think we should see some further improvement. I hope.
So obviously I asked to rate your own performers, because I just think it's kind of a fun thing to see. We had out of 5 stars. Last year it was 4.07, and this year everyone rated themselves at 4.20. We have spent a lot of time putting together engagement type events. So I asked what their favorite ones were. The cookouts coupled with training, our sandbox day, our offsite training, and our Christmas safety party were all noted as ones that were a favorite. I asked if there were some that they would like to have more. And there was a theme that came across as having more family events, so getting more of the families involved here. I also thought it was worth noting that they thought maybe having some engagements where we invited other local governments would be a good idea too. So this is a question in an area that we continue to work on. This is kind of like that communication area. How do you receive information, and how would you like to receive information? Last year it was overwhelming that most people received the information and updates from their coworkers. And the question of who would you like to receive it from is your supervisor. So our scale outweighed where we kind of have like the game of telephone, how I'm gonna call it, going on. And then by the time some people get the information,
It's inaccurate.
It's inaccurate. And so they don't like receiving it that way. I will say that it did pop up from the supervisor, level, like that more people have received from their supervisor. So we're doing a better job with that. An area that I would say that we can work on still is when we have internal staff meetings, we need to make sure that the supervisors and managers are getting that information back directly out to their team. That would be step one. Communication between all departments. Overall, these kind of hung in the same areas as they did last year. Continues to need improvement. But I will say that even that over half has reported it as good between the departments. How far in advance are you made aware of your assignments? And 67% reported the same day. That's definitely something that we need to work on. And that's where that communication comes into play. I do know that is an area that many would like to know a little more in advance. And if I could take this one a little bit with the crew. So I think that's where our percentage is coming from, where they're coming in and finding out like just today what we get to do. And I know it's been something that we're working on to be able to say, the weather kind of changes some of that, but overall, we can lay out a whole plan for, hey, this is what we intend to get done this summer, at least in certain areas, you know, what you're going to be doing. We might not, you know, we might be able to say, hey, this is happening next week, and then the weather or, you know, some unforeseen circumstance comes in. But overall, if you go back up to the top of why people felt fulfilled, it's because they know what their part is in the larger picture.
Yeah.
So if they need to know a little bit more.
Well, our
then just
environment
okay.
is outdoors,
Mhm.
and so we are at the mercy of the weather. For example, if we're gonna have a tree cutting crew out and it just decides to rain for a week, well, that changes everything.
Yes.
So,
But an overall idea of plan going into each season, I think would be appropriate. Let's see, this was new this year. We put a question out about favoritism and if they believe it existed. 56 reported yes. Also, I will say that we went through the data and a majority of that was coming from our crew positions. When we asked the next question, if so, what areas? It was multiple choice, and we had work assignments, promotion, enforcing rules or discipline, and then a section for other. And that was a very equally split pie, to be honest, in between those 4 areas. So that is an area that we're gonna be looking into.
you know, it's a mix of perception and reality,
Yes.
I think, too. Because if you're new in particular, it's gonna be really tough for you not to see it. You know, because there are people who have already established relationships, and I think you have to kind of find a way to get beyond that.
And I think some of it too is, and you'll see when we flip over to kind of go through what we have right now for promotion and everything within the crew as a tier system. And we've actually been working it through administration as well, so that people can more clearly see what their next path would be. What we're really diving into now is preparing what those descriptions would be. What items would you need to accomplish to get to this next step? And I think what happens here is that we're kind of in that mix of getting in new. And so some people come here with experiences that may not have been developed here, but they already come here with it. And then we have some people who have been here and have developed those over time here. And so it's kind of marrying all that together, bringing in some of those experiences from the outside. And then, you know, but we want to make sure that we don't overlook, and if there are areas where they feel like, you know, we're going to look into it, make sure that there's not areas where there's favoritism. Asked about the benefits and the ones that were most, you know, well received and liked. Those that were noted were health insurance, retirement, flexible schedules, including the 410s. And then one thing that I really loved that I saw multiple times was job security.
Good.
We know our employer is gonna exist.
Yeah.
If
Something really massive happens, which I think our jobs may be the least of our issues in that point.
Yes.
What benefits would you like to see more of? And that would be the paid time off. I think that's most likely coming from our crew, especially our incoming crew that's on that. It takes a little bit of time to build that time off, you know, when you first come in here. And so if, you know, if one thing happens and you need to take that week off, that's only been, you know, achieved in your first 6 months here. And so life happens sometimes, you know, so that was really the major one that showed up in that question.
Would unemployment be considered paid time off? Just.
The taxpayers figure it. When somebody first comes to work here, they don't have any accrued hours.
Correct.
And how long before they earn vacation?
So everybody can begin earning it right from day one. They start accruing it.
I see.
With an accrue, they have to wait 6 months to be able to use it.
To be able to use it, they start accruing.
But they can use it under the Michigan's medical.
Yeah.
leave.
Right,
So
right,
They can
yeah.
still use that, but
But
they can't start taking a vacation.
PTO and vacation are different.
No,
So
it's just PTO.
it's all one.
But it's still, it's a nice, they have a nice benefits
But they
package.
can
and then
start
again,
accruing,
so
but-
it's-
Yeah.
Is it
And,
so much
and we
per
make
pay?
sure if somebody is in there for
Yes.
6 months and
They
they need to
earn
get
per
something, we
paycheck.
make sure they get to it.
Yeah.
We don't like make
No,
that a bad
absolutely.
thing.
Okay, but as long as it starts accruing on day one.
I have a part, is that a straight up accruement or is there a graduated?
The more years you have, the more you accrue.
So it's the same model as state of Michigan.
So, and the problem is in the early ones, we have occasionally people that, they haven't accrued that much and then something does happen and they have to take time off. And we work with them, we allow them to use that time, but we also allow them to go into a no pay situation if they need to. And even some of them, we've let them go a little bit negative because it might be like 5 or 6 hours. And I evaluate those on a case by case basis. And we have some other options, if they actually get hurt, we have short-term disability. So they have to make it that first week, but after that, they're covered under short-term disability. So we have a lot of options for them to fall back onto.
So one of the questions was if you could have any job here, what would it be? Had a lot of different answers there. So the way that I put that is positions most sought after. So in the tiering system within the crew, it's road maintenance worker and it tiers up to operator. So I've had a lot of people that answered back that they wanted to get to equipment operator. And then other areas that kind of popped around, several people had expressed that they liked the area that they were working in, but they wanted to be able to learn and grow and add more duties, possibly to begin to add more value to the organization. And then, yes, I did ask, I did throw in a few kind of maybe, but I don't think they're silly because I think it's fun to see, but it looks silly. Favorite snack, overall, after I went through the whole list, which we had a lot of random things, but chocolate and any kind of meat was about the best.
Especially blended.
Yeah, blended. So on the flip side, I kind of went through and just summarized some of the action items that we need to sit down and also incorporate this, I think, as we pull together the strategic
Yeah,
planning.
this would be really valuable.
And that's why it was nice to work at the same time. But continue to work with staff during the evaluation. So right now, we are just beginning to go through the winter evaluations for the crew. I think that's a great time to go over the position tier systems and their potential for growth. Also discuss what areas they might get to work in this summer so that they can, go through that growth. At the end of the winter season, we're also going to be reviewing, go over what the reviews were for end of summer season, and then remind them the things that, to work on that they had discussed in the fall. This would also be helpful to include more one-on-one time with staff to evaluate the progress and focus areas throughout the year. So one thing that I like to try to share with everybody is you do not have to wait until an evaluation, time. Anytime that you want to talk to your supervisor, please, everybody should feel free to reach out to talk to their supervisor to do that. I think it also would be very helpful when we're talking about plans is so that everybody here could see the entire plans for the organization. So whether that be, the particular road projects or, or kind of what we're talking about, putting together that strategic plan. So everybody knows what we're working for. We know why we're coming each day. And even if our part is kind of secluded in an area, we can see the overall grander plan of what we're working towards. So that would be my hope, that we continue to work for that. And then when we get that together, we need to have like stepping stones, so, time completions and things, just like when you guys had a couple of asks tonight, we wanted to be able to have like a completion time on it. And I think that's important to feel that success. Continue to inform the crews of the project plans. This could be done through more of our organizational meetings coming from the direct supervisors. And then I also wrote the media outlets because we have these type TVs out in the break room area. And Jay has put together the beginning of a scrolling informational thing. So it scrolls information. Sometimes it's fun, you know, like birthdays and what's coming up. But I think this will be a great outlet to put more of these larger plans. And then I'm gonna just say that we need to continue to train, inform, and educate. So within some of these questions, I also had put out, how do you think we could better serve the community and maybe gap that communication block that we have sometimes. And I was super impressed with the answers that I got back, because there were several that said, tell us more, train us more, educate us more, because we're the boots out on the ground. So we're out in the public side, you know, very, very often. So the more we know, we can, you know, better be able to help and just, you know, explain that, or at least at some kind of high level, at least they go out and not and understand what's happening, so that they're not out there feeling completely in the dark either. So I liked that idea as we continue to talk about communication. Work with the townships to inform residents of projects that are going to occur ahead of time.
Yeah, we need that better.
And when that way, when we do have crews and staff out there, they're not taking the brunt of that. Continue to work with right-of-way standards and enforcement. And some of these that I put on here, they were actually ideas that were put out by the staff in this survey. Communicate with consistency. It's okay to say, I'm not sure, and get the right answer. And I think everybody in the entire organization needs to understand that and be transparent. What was even better was we just came back from CRA. I sat in 2 different sessions, and that's what they highlighted in those 2 sessions. And so this is not just a Grand Traverse County Road Commission thing. I think this is an overall, everybody is seeking to have that. You know, you're oftentimes dealing with difficult situations, and somebody's probably not going to be happy, but we still need to be able to answer timely. And then when we don't know, just say we don't know, and then let's get the right answer. I think we need to continue to work on our supervisory training. Throughout the organization, we tend to promote from within, which means that people probably have that overall, you know, tribal knowledge of the things that need to happen here, but maybe they came from a position that didn't have a lot of supervisory training in the past, or they haven't had that experience. And so I think that's an important thing for us to continue to get the tools to them. Again, you know, do more conflict avoidance training and reinforcement. That kind of ties back into the, okay, say I'm not sure. And then conduct more technical training for our software that Larry keeps putting in front of us, right? And then once we get the updated website, I want to make sure that when we do have those tools, that everybody knows how to use them. Just like when you guys said you want to make sure you understand the app. I think that's the same thing that we were finding the survey teach us, because then we can then teach other people, you know, outside. And then another area that we hit was safety. And overall, going forward, we need to take, you know, ownership in safety here, and it has to come from the top and work its way all the way through. And really, if we see something that's not right, stop it, you know, and make that accountability. Safety is our safety book that we have is always should be living, breathing, because new things are going to come up and things are going to change. So I think it's an area that we really need to highlight. And some of the things that you guys have went and approved, I appreciate, you know, like the what is it, the forestry head, you know, things like that, because I'm the person who sees everybody come through and works with them through the disability or through the workman's comp. And we did have a lot of injuries, you know, through trees. And so it's nice to see that we have that support. And I think that everybody here in the organization sees that too. And then my last thing would be is that just because we go through this once doesn't mean that we all don't need to have the, continued reminder and repeating it to make these good habits.
Just to touch on the forestry aspect, when we supported that, I mean, I kind of vaguely recall the conversation. I mean, was that a consideration as far as the injuries, or was that just a nice side effect?
No, it's definitely a major thing, because the majority of the injuries that we suffer as workers' comp claims come during forestry type operations.
Yeah.
And by using this forestry head to take down trees, number one, it's faster.
Right.
But number two, they're protected, they're in a cage, nothing's gonna fall on them and injure them. We had somebody out on the tree crew that branch fell, hit him in the arm. He was out for a while. So, we're trying always to mitigate these circumstances. We still need to do the work, but we need to make it as safe as possible.
And the radios you guys voted on tonight, that's huge for the safety as well.
Did anybody, because I don't know if we were the same one, they talked about the incidences of personal. Some people in the field being personally attacked by
Yes.
citizens. Is there anybody indicated they had a problem with that?
So we
Or
also.
concerned with that, I guess.
Okay, and last year we had a gentleman come in named Hector, and it's Hector Speaks. And it's about how to help deal with difficult people when you're out. We've had people climb on the sides of trucks, to talk to people. We've had them approach our engineering staff because they, out there. We've also had a dog, come towards one of our staff members. And so,
We actually had a dog bite.
yeah.
Too, so.
Yeah. So we have Hector coming back in April. It's about the third week in April. He's gonna do a whole day session. Again, he was very, very well received by staff. And so I think it's a helpful reminder to how best to go through that process. And yeah, I think I was in that one with you. That was the one you and I were in together. And they had a lot of great things as well. So we do try to put that out there, and it is hard because you want to try to, I mean, we've had people run into the backs of our mower. We've had, just things like that. People are upset about maybe not even about what we are doing. Maybe it's a collection of the day, but our staff that is away from here, has that physical. And then our staff that is in here oftentimes get it on the phone. It might not be that first physical, but it's on the phone. So overall, I think it's really important for everybody to, number one, have the reinforcement that it's okay when that, okay of how to walk through it and deal with it, but just have the reinforcement to know better how to handle it.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you for doing this.
Yes.
I wish every workplace did this, and it's really beneficial for a board setting policies. It's huge. So thank you. It's great information.
Next is Boardman River Crossing Letter of Commitment.
So as part of what they filed for us today, the state of Michigan wants a commitment that we will pursue and we will fund the local share that will be required for moving through the next phase of the process. So we don't know what that amount is going to be, but it could very well be in the $2 million range. But in order for them to take us seriously, we have to make that commitment that we are going to continue to pursue this process and not just let it drop because suddenly we don't have a way to pay for it. Yes, it's a lot for the design, but we are trying to get more and more grants, and we are going to be dealing with elected.
We got the ball, we're not gonna drop the ball.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep.
So the question then is, and it doesn't matter, they said it can come from me or it can come from the board. They don't care, they just want something. So it's up to you to decide if you want me to write something that says we have made the commitment, we are going to, or if you want me to draft something and have the chair sign it. I don't care how it works. I just want to make sure the board understands that we are making this commitment. We are pledging that we are going to continue moving forward with this process and not let the ball drop. So, your pleasure.
I
think we should do a motion.
I'd like to do a motion that our intent is to move forward. What is the best way to communicate that?
So make a motion to instruct staff to prepare a letter of intent of moving forward.
And you want me to send it or do you want
Yes.
the board to?
I think you send it, but you should also have the chair.
So the two signatures.
Okay, perfect. That works. And I will send it out for review before it actually goes out. So you'll see something.
Make a motion, is there a second?
I will second it.
And that's all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Because we're not technically spending money, but
No.
committee do it, or not. And the last one on my list is the cost petition for 3 Mile. I'm going to South Airport. I need some explanation on this one. Start.
Yeah.
Fair for you.
That's fair.
This is category F funds for crush and shaping 3 Mile Road between Hammond and South Airport and its turn lanes. 375 is the amount that we've granted. That's the max you can get. And we're gonna cover the rest of it with our funds.
Now, what's the expected length of return? Because I know 3 Mile, I mean, it's, that particular stretch is one of the nastiest.
Yeah.
Gonna screw up in the next 5 years stretch. Can we get another 5 years out of it this way? Can we get more if we're particularly careful? I mean, ideally, I'd love to just carve out 20 feet deep and put a Roman road in there, you know, but we just can't do that, obviously.
This would be a crush and shape project.
Okay.
So you probably got 10 to 15.
Okay, because I think it was, it's been about 10 years.
If we do some undercutting and stuff, the swampy area. And
Yeah, it's
we
just.
got borings and stuff. We'll have to look at that when we go design.
So there are going to be some turn lanes put into it?
Yes, industrial circle.
Because we'll get blowback as to why we didn't widen it.
Yeah.
Well,
We're gonna get made
yeah,
So
blowback as to why it's not.
We're gonna be right up against right away when I put turn lane.
Yeah, but in terms of, so the edge, the edging, we had a piece of property we sold in 2019, the family, my family. And the edges just fall apart. And if you can get it further out, you don't have the stress right at the edge.
Right.
And frankly, people like that extra space.
Yeah, this would be upgrading that from
So we are gonna have, instead of 10
over
inches,
5 foot paved shoulders like your standard.
wonderful.
All right. so
If that's included in this all day long,
Okay.
yeah.
That answers.
And this is, you know, a 10 to 15 year, but we're gonna do preventive
Well,
maintenance, so we can extend it.
Yeah, it will last longer than the last time, if only on that basis. I'm just telling you,
Yeah.
it eats away from the sides on that particular stretch. So,
And when would construction,
This would be 2024 construction,
2024, okay. Spring, I assume.
spring, summer.
yeah, I'd move that we approve the cost participation agreement and resolution authorizing the clerk and the county highway engineer to sign the agreement. With our portion being $667,352, more or less.
I'll support. I do have one question though. When the original Hartman Hammond was going to happen, one of the many iterations, but the most recent iteration, and they widened 3 Mile and they widened Hammond and they did the railroad trestle and they created, and they did all of that, and then it was stopped because of what happened in Lansing. Why wasn't 3 Mile widened from South Airport to Hammond? Is there something about that area of road that's special or unique?
You're butted up against some
Wetlands
wetlands
are right,
in some
right.
areas there.
So,
There was some talk, though, there was a widening.
So that's my
In fact,
question.
Quite a bit, and also including biking lanes and whatnot. I mean,
Yeah,
it was.
We are widening it by adding the paved shoulders.
Yeah. Quite a
But
bit.
that's 10 more feet.
Mhm.
But the difficulty in that section is number one, he's gonna have a lot of undercutting here anyway, because it's
Okay.
over much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But you know, you also are butting up to some pretty substantial wetlands there. And this is intentioned to be a maintenance type thing, a maintenance situation of the existing, yet adding those lanes. At some point, yes, we are going to have that discussion of widening it so that we have better transportation through the whole corridor. but I think that is something that, talking to Wayne, that we are looking to. We need to do something on airport itself from 3 Mile back towards Garfield. Because in front of Costco, it's not wide enough right now. So we also need to worry about that. And when we start talking about that, there are serious drainage issues that have to be accomplished. Because that section of airport, if we get heavy rains, it's underwater, sometimes for a day.
Just, you should talk to the planning guys over at East Bay Township. They'll tell you Ted Henson. I mean, he'll tell you back before I call the trailer park, but the mobile home community, or whatever you call it. They literally filled in a swamp. That used to be a swamp, and it used to absorb a lot of water. And now where does the water have to go? And so
it sits down the airport.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is we have to watch the ditching. One of the problems that particular stretch has is it kind of does this a little bit, but we have to somehow make that ditching work to get it down into the creek, essentially is what the option is.
And that will all be taken care of as part of this project.
So we're gonna be doing this in 24.
That's what I'm trying to think.
The same year, they're gonna do the Parkway. Alternative traffic is across South Airport.
Yeah, but this is from airport to Hammond.
But I'm just thinking of traffic.
The only thing the state is proposing to route down airport is truck traffic.
Truck traffic.
They are going to leave it open for car traffic both ways.
You can help us approve that at all after the trucks go across there.
We already got a lot from them out of the detour for Chum's Corners. They're redoing all of our concrete for free. So that's a pretty major amount of concrete they're replacing for us at no charge. So, but they will, yeah, if it's beaten up too terribly, they'll definitely come in and help us get it
And
fixed.
we have notified East Bay Township, the truck traffic is coming up and across.
Yes, they were involved with the original plan.
I'll make sure.
And she was Beth was at the actual MDOT meetings with us talking about it.
So there will be a lot of pressure in 24 on South Airport again.
Yes.
So the public needs to know that. Okay.
And MDOT has a whole communication thing coming out this fall to talk about.
When we add 3 Mile 2, that is a lot of pressure.
Yes, no, and they're gonna talk about how it's gonna happen and where it's gonna be.
They're gonna go from 3 Mile.
They're gonna be
to Town Line
talking
and do
to,
the same thing.
right, they're gonna be talking to us to make sure it covers everything we want covered in their press release.
Thank you, thank you.
Any further?
Spend in mind, so Kylie?
Gilman,
Yes.
Chasm, absent and excused, Corn,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
and Underwood.
Yes. Managers, comments.
I am so tired. I don't have a comment to make, so I'm sorry.
All right, commissioners?
It's kind of long. 3 hours is long.
I just have a couple of things. On Long Lake Road, you've got a lot of development right now. Traffic's picking up. I've mentioned this before. If we could get our engineers, this would be a real simple thing, I think. I mean, there's a development, it's called the Lone Tree. There's that Lone Tree development. It's just west of the Zimmerman Road crossing on Long Lake. They have an approach there, but it's not really an approach. They need an approach. They will probably pay for it. So if we can design it for them and get it done, I think it would serve their community there better, and it would also provide a little safety on that stretch, as we have all the new entering traffic right there, actually. I mean, they doubled in size. I mean, the number of buildings and whatnot. But I think that approach needs to be looked at so that, because right now you kind of drive up on the approach, and then you kind of have to swing back out to get in. It's messed up. A single lane approach would be very helpful to them. And like I said, I think they'd pay for it.
Somebody driveway approach?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's their road. It's the Lone Tree Road. But it's not a full lane. And there's a lot of traffic there. Traffic moves fast. People are impatient. The school's going on. Everything's happening there. It's busy, as you know. And I just think that should be taken care of. It would be worth approaching them. At one point, I know they were willing to pay for it, but we just never made it happen. But if we could make it happen, it'd be great. The other thing is just a little history on the TTCI and whatnot that I recall. I also served on.
I remember.
And it was really interesting. I actually calculated that we had spent to that point in 2012 about $1.5 million of local resources to manage what they're really desperately trying to figure out how to spend $2.1 million. I mean, that's government efficiency. I just love it, But of course, it was called TC Talus at the time.
It was TC.
And I voted against every $50,000 contribution from the county.
I did too. And I was on the board.
And the year after I was off the county board, Carl Brown, he calls me up. He says, "I really don't want to give him any money." Because he was the chair at that time.
We never contributed to one.
And I'll tell you, it's a funny thing. There's a lot of people who make a lot of money planning. And, I mean, in some ways, I guess there's times and places for it and everything that works. But they were so desperate to spend that $2.1 million is that they were told that it was going to expire. And literally had like 3 months to get it committed. And then they tried to get some money out to Buckley, to the MDOT project out in Buckley to clean up the corners there in Buckley. That was one part of it, but ultimately the biggest chunk of it wound up being for that drive over at the hospital, behind the hospital.
Red Drive, Silver Drive.
No, Silver Drive.
Yeah.
And so you have your neat little Silver Drive, and that was the result of $1.5 million of local planning.
Too narrow for a snow.
Remember Roger Rayner?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He's giving me all his files from TC Talus.
Oh, God, I'm sorry. It was terrible.
History is a beautiful teacher, though, I'm telling you. So. All right, I'm done.
What you and I had talked about, a couple points of clarification, probably for the new person. We had an issue come up where, in my opinion, we had an error and omission on the agenda, and we need to solidify just our process so that we can communicate better with that. So I don't have a copy of the board rules, but if I could get a copy of the board rules, we should have some kind of way that if we notice something 5-6 days before a meeting, we can amend the agenda online. I know every municipality does it, as long as you don't violate the OMA, which is something like 18-hour change or something. We have the technology to do this, and we should be able to do it because our local press uses our published agenda to prepare article a day or 2 or 3 before the meeting. And if there's bad facts out there or omissions or errors, we need to be able to, I'm not talking about every single change, like these things that were on our desk. I don't mean that. I'm talking about critical errors and omissions that change the way that things are before a meeting. So I would like to see a copy of the board rules. And I serve on the policy committee with Hyder, and I don't know how your board works. On boards I've been on in the past, the policy committee reviews rules or brings proposed changes to boards. You guys can do that however you want, but.
Well, I mean, that's kind of going to be your job. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of where you're going to be at, you and Hyder. Okay. I mean, up until we really didn't have a policy committee up until last year.
You didn't? Okay.
I mean, this is the subcommittee level is relatively new, and so we're working through it, and that's kind of going to be your job. I mean, don't overdo it.
Right.
And I will say this to Brad's credit, in the last several years, we have simplified a number of policies, taking care of redundancies and things that just didn't have any bearing any longer. But this is something that I think it will be good for us, and going forward with the guidance of our planning session that we had, I think
Well,
You've got-
it was
you've got a
clear
good
we
place
all
to
want to
learn
be
from.
transparent, and the best way to be transparent is using our website
Yeah.
and having good up-to-date data
No
on
question
there.
about it.
And this was just an
This,
example.
this
of
was
how
an
we could get
oversight. I know the
It's
oversight you're talking about. It was a missing resolution.
Right.
Yeah.
And
We call it errors and
And-
omissions.
so,
And I take part credit for that.
I didn't communicate.
and I
with you
understand how,
guys.
I understand how it happened, but we probably should have thrown it in with the minutes at least, at the very least.
And I
You know.
talked to Elise here and, or Carter's off doing his thing, but I'm gonna have them take a look at the board rules and give us recommendations of any changes we might have to make in the future.
Yeah.
So that,
Just so we have, staff and commissioners both just need a clear outline of the steps to take. If you realize there's an error or omission, well, here's the steps you can take. And one of the options would be exactly what we did today, put it on the desk. I just think in some cases that's not right.
other options are good.
Exactly. So that was something I wanted to bring up that's important to me that we could look at, maybe having a policy committee meeting on that. And I think that that would be really important to do. And that's it. And Green Lake Township wants their trees cut down at,
Of that intersection.
thank you, the intersection, Riley and,
Jay talked to Marv about that, and he said he wanted to wait at least 3 to 4
wait,
weeks.
let's just keep on it because that is one group. We are just gonna keep on it with it. So I'm just gonna remind it every time.
No, he wanted to wait a little bit till they found out exactly what happened.
Yep, they did find out what happened, but I think there's still a desire to move forward.
And they need to change their ordinance on clear sight distance.
And you know,
Because we can't touch what the fundamental problem is, because it's not in the right of way.
okay, so the townships have
Oh,
a
right.
So we can't do anything
Well,
to really totally solve the problem. until they
we
change.
let them worry about what we can. So
Right.
that's good.
clear site distance.
And we will help them do that.
And you guys can assist in that.
Yeah, we will help them craft the ordinance so that it is standardized and fits for what they need to do.
And that would,
And then we would then
Right.
take care of it. We would be able to take care of it then after.
Okay, that's what I needed to know.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, I'm gonna be real quick. We got back this afternoon from Terry. Got a great crew here. You guys all do a great job. You're all well respected. That's very impressive when you go down as a commissioner. I appreciate that. Good things were learned, worth to come. Stuff we have learned. I mean, I sat through one session that was all about grants. So, and they only scratched the surface. So there'll be more things coming in the future. So
Yeah.
with that, public comment. Is there any more public comment?
Motion to adjourn.
Sparkle, man.